Here we go.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I would like to call this meeting to order. Clerk Allison, could we please have a roll call?
Yes, we can. Trustee Donnersberger? Here. Trustee Eck?
Here.
Trustee Farrell Mayer?
Here.
Trustee Kennedy?
Present.
Trustee Metz?
Here.
Trustee O'Loughlin?
Here.
And Mayor Hinshaw is here.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
Just so everybody knows, our attorney, Pat, is on the way, so he will be coming. Reminder that these meetings are recorded. We're on Facebook Live and YouTube, and then a few days after the meeting, we get the video put on our website. What? Oh, and Comcast Channel 6, and hopefully soon DirecTV. We don't know the channel yet, but we're working on that. Okay, and we have agendas over there and a sign-in sheet if anybody wants. First item would be the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all please rise with me. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item is the mayor's report. Next Tuesday, the 14th, we have a League of Women Voter candidate night. It'll be virtual on Zoom. It's for the two mayor candidates, Sean and Amy. You can go to the League of Women Voter site and register, and then you can submit questions in advance of that if you would like. Wolf Road update. We are at the point of hopefully the county will approve the amendment to the intergovernmental agreement next Thursday, the 16th, and then we'll start preparing the public involvement plan or the PIP. And we've said this several times, but if anybody is interested in seeing what a public involvement plan or PIP looks like, you can see the Plainfield Road PIP that is on improveplainfieldroad.org. You can Google that, and then after the PIP has been approved by IDOT, we'll work on the Corridor Advisory Committee or the CAC to gather more community input. Pedestrian access master plan, there are three main areas in the village. Plainfield Road and Wolf Road, both are in a phase 1 study, and both are county roads, and then Joliet Road is a state road, and we're waiting approval to begin phase 1 of a sidewalk along Joliet Road. And a little over $4.3 million has been allocated for this project. 294 Tollway. We've heard from several residents recently in the last couple weeks about 294 questions and issues. Andy will be creating an FAQ page on our website, and of course the Tollway has a website with a lot of information. Some of the issues that we've heard is questions about a large space under the Plainfield Road Bridge, the slope on Plainfield Road, the noise abatement wall height in Indian Head Park versus some other communities, water pooling under the Tollway Bridge alongside Wolf Road. We've heard from some residents about a rumor going around that the tollway will leave a permanent gap in the noise abatement wall. This issue was first reported back in November 2022 at the village board meeting, that there's approximate 180-foot gap in the noise abatement wall just south of Plainfield Road. This 180-foot gap in the noise wall is needed for construction access and will be replaced in the fall of 2023. And the contractor is Passion, if I'm pronouncing that right, who will be doing the work. And lastly, Acacia Drive, the landscaping finishing up work from the project last year will be starting soon. Okay, we're at the point in the agenda for public comments. We have two of these points. If you'd like to make a public comment, please come to the podium. Andy, do we have any that have been submitted?
Yes, and I'll also note really quick that during our budget presentation later, that's a public hearing, so we'll have a third opportunity for
thank you.
comments there too. I do have one comment from resident Amy Eckert about Blackhawk Park. Blackhawk Park seems to be turning into a giant ashtray. I suggest someone walk the sidewalk and take note of how many cigarette butts are in the grass along it. It's truly disgusting to look at. It's bad enough that there's an abundance of dog waste that gets left behind, but at least that is biodegradable and hopefully will disappear over time. Thank you for listening, Amy.
Is that it?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, any other comments? Again, there will be another opportunity at the end of the meeting, but I don't see anybody coming to the podium. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion on the consent agenda as established.
I'll second.
Thank you, Brenda and Rita. Any questions or comments from the board? Maureen, would you like to update the financial report, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Got to get the microphone.
At the end of January, cash on hand was $3.1 million. Payables for the month were $383,000. There was not anything out of the ordinary. Revenues were $164,000, leaving an ending cash balance of $2.9 million.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Of that money, how much of that's invested for an interest-bearing amount of any kind? It's a little over 500,000?
That's in T-bills.
Want to turn your mic? Thank you.
That's in T-bills. We're going to be purchasing another $250,000 in T-bills shortly. All but probably $300,000 is in interest-bearing accounts.
All but 300,000?
That's to the best of my knowledge right now. It might be in your packet. We have the interest that we earn by month on that individual account. So let me look right now.
While John is looking, are there any other questions or comments about the consent agenda items? We'll give John a moment, see if he can get that.
Revenue.
John, how about we get that
We'll get
later and
that
you
in a little
can
bit.
send that out. Okay, new business. Would somebody like to make a motion on Resolution 03-2023?
Where is that? Right here. But don't we have to?
Oh,
Looking for a resolution?
do we have to have a motion for that, John?
For a resolution, yes, you do.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution honoring Earl O'Malley for his service to the village.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Brenda and Eileen. Brenda, are you prepared to read that?
Sir, I don't think we voted on the consent agenda.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad, sorry. I skipped ahead in the meeting. We need to vote on the consent agenda items. Again, my apologies. Clerk Allison, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Trustee O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell-Mayer.
Aye.
Trustee Donnersberger.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
All right, thank you, that has been approved.
All right, that's been approved. Again, my apologies. And so now we're on to the resolution, and that's been brought forth by Brenda, seconded by Eileen. And are you ready?
I'm ready.
Thank you.
Okay. Hold on one second. There it goes. Down, down, down. Here it is. Okay. This is a resolution honoring and thanking Earl O'Malley for his service to the village of Indian Head Park. Whereas Earl O'Malley has long served the village of Indian Head Park in numerous capacities, but mostly as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission from October 2004 to April 1st, 2017, as a member of the Fire and Police Commission from April 1st, 2017 to March 30th, 2023. And whereas Commissioner O'Malley served the thoughtfully, capably, and with the highest integrity. And whereas the member of both commissions, he was dedicated to making sound recommendations, serving both the immediate and long-term needs of the village. And whereas the corporate authorities of the village deem it desirable to officially extend their thanks to Commissioner O'Malley and to officially commend him on his service to the village. Now therefore be resolved by the President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Indian Head Park, Cook County, Illinois, as follows. Section 1, the statements contained in the preambles in this resolution are found to be true and correct and is hereby adopted as part of this resolution. Section 2, the Board of Trustees hereby commends and thanks Earl O'Malley for his service to the village. Section 3, the resolution shall be in full force and effect upon its passage and approval in accordance with the law. Anything else? That's it.
Thank you, Brenda. Any questions or comments on that?
Well, I think I'd like to thank and commend Commissioner O'Malley and wish him the best and thank you for all the service.
Yeah, I agree. Earl is a character, and he no shortage of stories. He's always ready with a story. Okay, Clerk Allison, could we have a vote, please?
All right. I think this is a voice vote.
Voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. That has been approved. I would like to make the appointment of Mark Lefevre to the Fire and Police Commission for a term expiring April 1st, 2026.
I make a motion to accept the mayor's nomination of Mark Lefevre to the Fire and Police Commission for the term specified.
So I'll second that.
Thank you, Brenda and Rita. Mark is here tonight. If anybody doesn't know, Mark is on the front row. Any questions or comments?
I'd just like to say I've known Mark for more than 40 years. We were just little kids when we knew each other, of course. But Mark was in law school at the time. He went on to work for the state's attorney's office. He was one of their shining stars. He went on afterwards and into private practice where he excels. And he's a man of integrity and hardworking. And I know he's going to, we are very fortunate to have you as part of the Indian Head Park family, Mark. Thanks.
Thank you.
I just want to say I've known Mark longer.
Very true.
Yes.
All right, Clerk Allison.
All right. The trustee O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayer.
Aye.
Trustee Donnersberger.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy and
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Thank you. That has been approved.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Congratulations. Congrats.
All right, the next item is the first look for 6971 Vine Street development. Is this Andy?
Yes. So 6971 Vine Street. David, when you get a chance, can you pull up the aerial photo? 6971 Vine Street is a vacant home, and it's currently the the last single-family home located in the Triangle area. It is in the Triangle Plan Unit Development, which is a Business 3 Plan Unit Development, which means that it can no longer be used as a residence, as it has been vacant long enough that it goes into a non-conforming use per our code. So at this time, the only eligible use is commercial, either retail or offices. Tonight we have with us some representatives from Burr Ridge Construction Services. They are a firm that's interested in purchasing the property and converting it into a mixed-use structure. They're interested in some sort of office spaces on the bottom floor and the residential apartment on the second floor. And this is the first step in the PUD process. This is what we ask any and all potential developers or PUD applicants to go through. It's really for them to come to the board, give you a brief overview of what they're looking to do, and for the board to give them some on-the-spot feedback as to whether or not the village encourages them to continue through the process. It's meant to save the village time, but also developers' time and money, if the village board were not interested. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to, I think we have Eddie and Hosni with us tonight, and I'll let them give a brief presentation about what they're looking to do.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, all. Good evening, dear President, dear Board of Trustee and Indian Head Park residents. My name is Adi Al-Salhani, and I have my partner, Hosni Qadi. We are construction business. We developed our business. We opened our business last year, and we are part of huge investors trying to invest their money with us. We've been lucky to have our business here in Indian Head Park, and we are so happy to be part of this beautiful village. Our vision in this location is to tear it down, build mixed use, right, exactly very similar to next door. Next door of this building, we have a mixed use building. It has offices at the lower floor. We have residential at the second, at the third floor. So we are planning to do the same. We just want to make sure before we go through this process that the board and everybody will accept this before we invest and before we get in and involved in this business. I would like to thank you all. I would like to say good evening all, and I'm happy to be here again. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, can you quickly go through the process again? So this is a first look, there's no vote, and then we're giving feedback, and then what happens?
Yeah, so if tonight the board says overall we like the sound of this idea, we encourage you to go through the process, then it goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission will review building plans, site plans, all that kind of material, and then the Planning and Zoning Commission will provide a recommendation on approval or disapproval to the Board of Trustees, and it will go back to the Board of Trustees, and the Board of Trustees makes the final decision on whether or not to approve the development. So tonight there's no guarantee that anything is approved until the very last approval at the Board of Trustees, but tonight is a good idea. It's a good opportunity to get the general feelings from the board as to whether or not you like this kind of idea, and you encourage them to go through the process.
Thank you. All right, with all that, any questions or comments? I see Rita, yes?
Yeah, I just noticed in the summary you gave us, Andy, it states that the building's not going to be torn down but renovated. And then Mr. Barata, I believe, just said it's going to be torn down. So I guess I'd like clarification on that.
All right. My name is Hosni Qadi, and also I'm partner with Eddie with Barata Group. The idea is to, since now the residential is already existing, and there is a way that we can also, instead of, or at the beginning, instead of tearing it down, we can use it as is, as a plan A, sorry, we can use it as is. The lower floor we can do it as a business, offices, and the upper floor as a residential. Same way that because we are in the neighbor, our office is in 6981. So it's just the next lot is our office. It was a residential before, and they converted to business, and our business is located there now. So what we're thinking is to make the same idea, make a business in the lower floor, and upper floor is going to be a residential as is now. And there's already now the house now already has 2 kitchens, and it seems like it was built this way, but then the idea changed. So that's plan A. If plan A was not approved, then we can go to plan B, is to tear it down and make it same like our neighbors. There's a dental in the bottom floor, and then there's a residential in the upper floor.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Andy, you'd indicated earlier that at its present use that it could not be residential and had been vacant for a while. So is that in the PUD then?
So that part of the code is not in the plan unit development ordinance. It's elsewhere in the zoning code. basically, since it's a residential building in the business district, after a certain period of time, I think it's 180 days of vacancy, it can no longer be used strictly as a residential property.
You use the term strictly, so a mixed use would still be,
A mixed use is still
Conforming use?
technically not conforming. That's why they need to go through the PUD process. If they wanted to buy the house and just open up offices, they could do that without PUD approval. But any zoning change or building change, a zoning change meaning going from strictly commercial to mixed use, that does need to go through the PUD.
how many residential units on the second floor are anticipated?
I think right now just one.
If it's a tear down and you go to 2 floors above, how many residential units would you be looking at that point? And that, I think, is your Plan B?
Yes, exactly. That's Plan B. Actually, we still did not invest into design this because we don't have the. I mean, we don't own it yet, so we did not make any plans. But I think the next door, I think they have 18 units, the total units in the next door, so could be the same. It's a half acre, so I think there's a lot of possibilities.
That's a half-acre site?
The lot is for this location. It's a half acre.
And how many parking spots would there be, either Plan A or Plan B?
So for the Plan B, for Plan A, sorry, there's already a 2-car garage attached, and there's a driveway that fits. I think it's 6 or 7 cars as well. So that's like total 10 cars, vehicles, and also the area where this location is also connected with a plaza that has, I think it's more than 30 or 50 cars. That it's very, very close to that area.
Other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. Since you haven't purchased it yet, I'm assuming the answer will be no, but do you have anybody planned for occupancy right now? Any ideas on who would go in there?
No, not yet.
Nothing?
No,
Okay.
There's no plan for occupancy because we don't know if it's going to be commercial or residential. But I think the answer that we got, it's for sure it's not going to be residential. We hope if it's residential, I can give you the answer now. We can use it. But since it's not, we're thinking about developing it and make it mixed use.
Any thought for that mixed use to be, have a retail component to it, where we earn retail sales tax for the village? I mean, ideally, that's what this village could use, is a bigger retail
I don't think it's
sales
going to
tax
be
base.
the location for this one because it's the Vine Street is very small street and it's a branch street. I don't think it's going to be exposed to the Juliet Street because that could be a reason why it not could be a good retail spot, but it could be an office, yes.
Yeah, David, could you bring up the aerial really quick? Yeah, I would second that too. Unfortunately, I think it's so tucked away far enough down Vine Street, you'd have a hard time getting customers. You can see it there, so.
Yeah, it's not
All right, other questions or comments? Do we want to give these gentlemen a thumb up or a thumb down or any kind of feedback that they can take on either both plans or Plan A or Plan B, if you would like? And again, this is not a vote. We're not approving it. We're just helping them in the process, because if we all, if you all said no, then they probably would not go through the process. If you kind of say, yeah, we want to see how it looks if you tear it down or whatever, they're here to get feedback.
I'd certainly like to see what you can come up with either Plan A or Plan B. I think they're both viable.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
It sounds like,
Except for me.
and what,
I like the idea of keeping it commercial as opposed to a mixed use.
Keep the existing building as a commercial, you said?
No, you don't need to keep the existing building as a commercial, but that site is
as a
commercial,
whole.
yeah,
As a whole.
yeah.
so you're here for feedback. Is that good feedback? Are you okay with that? You may not like it all, or may not be exactly what you wanted, but
Okay, so I think then if there is if it's going to be commercial for this building, because there is no handicap access to the second floor, I don't think it's going to be applicable to have a commercial on the second floor. Maybe we can make it as a whole business, or as the gentleman said, that we can tear it down and just make it whole commercial. That will requires an investment for sure, huge investment.
And I would say, and I know you were able to count, I think you had 5 that thought Plan A and Plan B, on the face of it sound okay, and Charlie was saying all commercial, and it didn't sound like Charlie was hard and fast, maybe is. But anyway, I think you had 5 that were thumbs up on looking into Plan A and B.
Perfect.
That
I appreciate
good?
it. That's good, for sure. That's what I'm looking for.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next item. Would somebody like to make Resolution 02? What?
Can I speak on this
Oh.
same subject? I'm also interested in buying.
Oh, John? Pat? Yeah.
Take a minute. So I live in the town. I've been here about 9 years now. And I'm interested in this building. Actually, I'm thinking more about living there and maintaining the building as it is.
Could I get your name, please?
David Hillman,
Thank you, David.
how you doing?
Good.
What I would like to do is develop the back of the property as like a self-storage facility, because there's very limited access to this property. And really, their option's the best, tear it down and start over. But I think because that street is a dead end, and putting another building there with a lot of residences or something might be a bad choice, having more traffic and stuff like that. So I thought I would pitch this idea of, keeping the building as it is. I would live there and rent the apartment upstairs. And then I would start a self-storage facility behind the house for the mixed use.
How large would that be?
Well, I have 100 feet by 100 feet behind the house. Actually, a little more. So I could still have a backyard behind the house of about 20 feet by 75. And the empty lot behind is 100 by 100. I would have to create a roadway just to get back there to use it. But there's room on the side of the house, about 20 feet for a driveway.
David, is it possible for you to talk with either Andy or John or both, and so that they can get some idea of what you're thinking about? Because this is the first, I think, any of us here are
we
hearing
kind of
it.
talked once. I came in and asked questions about this property. A lot
Okay.
of people have asked questions about this property. And he said to just come to the meeting tonight and pitch it. Get a little sketch. I have an idea. I know what it'll cost me.
With the planned unit development, the board has great flexibility in uses. However, I would caution the board that a self-storage facility is not authorized under the B3 zoning district. So you would either need a variation or special consideration beyond the planned unit development process.
Okay.
So that's the word on the self-storage. I think part of when you started out, David, you were saying that you would keep it as is.
I want to live there on the first floor, rent the second floor, and run this business out of my home.
All right, and I think that isn't permitted.
Correct.
With the 180-day issue. So if that building stands, I believe the deal is the first floor has to be commercial, office or retail, and I think the second floor could be residential. Is that
You would
correct?
have to go through the planned unit development
Yeah.
process, but yes,
That's going to
that
be
is
a
correct.
tough building for what you guys are asking, as it stands.
Okay.
I think that's why a lot of people are walking away from this. So this is like a tear down and rebuild situation.
That's also possible.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
your time.
David. Okay, anybody else? All right. Would somebody like to make a resolution 02-2023?
I make a motion to pass Resolution 02-2023, allowing for outdoor consumption of alcohol at an upcoming event.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Eileen and Brenda. John, is this you to give us an overview, or Andy?
So on April 29th, we're having the Spring Fling, and it is going to be held at Indian Head Plaza. It's going to be a pretty much an afternoon, early evening event, and we will be opening up. We'll have a band there. We'll have a number of booths, and food options. And when we have festivals of this nature, it's common to take your beer, your alcoholic beverage and walk around the parking lot. Well, our normal code doesn't allow for alcohol consumption outside of the building, but for special events, the board can grant this use, and we've done it before, and I'm requesting the board grant this one-day event.
Thank you. And what time is the event, Eileen?
2 to 8.
2 to 8, and that is at the Triangle?
As a triangle.
Any questions or comments? Clerk Allison?
Okay, trustee Donnersberger.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayor.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
And Trustee O'Loughlin.
Aye.
That has passed.
All right, that's been approved. Thank you. Next up, would somebody like to make an ordinance 2023-04, commercial signage?
I make a motion to pass ordinance number 2023-04, an ordinance regulating commercial signage in the village.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Rita and Charlie. Andy, please.
Yes. So, over the last couple months at the board level, and then a few months before that at Planning and Zoning Commission, commercial signage regulations has been an ongoing and constructive conversation as to how we can improve our sign code. And so the ordinance you have before you does 5 things. It closes a sizing limitation loophole to prevent oversized signs at strip malls. It puts restrictions on the number of lumens that can be generated to 350 lumens from 4 feet from the sign. It also prohibits flashing lights and neon and gas tube signage. At the last month's board meeting, one of the points of direction that we requested from the board was as to an amortization schedule for non-compliant signs, whether the lumens are too high or the sign is too big. And the board liked that idea, so we have proposed I think a fair and tested amortization schedule for non-compliant signs of 5 years, with all signs having to become compliant by April 1st of 2028. So those are the 5 things within the ordinance. Another component that we had discussed was whether or not to have restrictions or prohibition on hanging signs. Staff does, after further research, staff is not recommending that. I would say almost all of the commercial businesses in town utilize those signs, whether it's an open sign or advertising a product or gaming here or any of that. We've never gotten complaints about them. Lots of businesses utilize them. From our research on other municipalities, most municipalities have no restrictions regarding them. So we do not recommend the inclusion of that. The ordinance is, the way it's written, excludes that right now. But other than that, I open the floor for any questions.
Anybody have any questions, comments?
Andy, how many, if any, signs are out of compliance as of now?
I know of one. We know of one. What we'll do when the ordinance eventually is approved, we'll do an audit of all of them. But as of right now, the sample that we did for our last meeting, we did a sample of 6 businesses. 5 of the 6 were compliant. 1 was not. Overall, my estimation is that the vast majority of signs are compliant.
If the sign is not compliant, can we go back and require them to change it after the ordinance passes, or will they be grandfathered in?
So with the amortization schedule, basically once this ordinance passes, any sign that's not compliant, they have 5 years to get into compliance. And that in the amortization schedule, there's a lot of, and I think Pat can probably speak more to it, but there's a lot of legal casework on non-conforming structures, non-conforming uses, things like that. You have to provide a time frame for removal and replacement of those structures. But basically, once this ordinance is in place, anything that's currently not compliant has until April 1st of '28 to become compliant.
And did you say flashing and neon signs will no longer be allowed under this?
Yes.
There's multiple neon signs, I know. So do we know how many would be affected by that? Or is it just signs above the building, or like an open sign, or I think the dry cleaner has a neon sign of what looks to be a shirt and tie. Is that something that we're going to now ask them to take down?
No, I think that would be under the category of a hanging sign.
Okay.
This is more so for like, that's more so for like the main sign. And if the board doesn't have a problem with neon or gas signage, you can remove that part of the ordinance. We include it in there because some other towns have it, and that we based our ordinance on others, but that can be taken out, as can anything. So.
I have a question on the 5-year compliance. Is that written into, is that because of a statute, or is that something we threw in? I mean, is it just an arbitrary 5 years? Can we make it 3 years or 2 years?
Pat, could you speak a little more to amortization schedules and legal?
Sure. So the 5 years, there's no magic to the 5 years. You can make it less if you'd like. Typically, or what an amortization schedule allows for is to have the person who put, in this case, the sign up, realize the value of their investment in the sign and not have to take it down right away. But there's no magic to 5 years. I'm not sure where, that number was arrived at, but if the board feels that 2 years or 3 years is enough time for that sign to, I'm not sure exactly what sign that is or what the investment was in that sign, but you can change that number.
I think we ought to change that number. I'd like to see it no more than 2 years, if that.
I believe in the past this board has talked about signage fees and trying to waive, reduce, lower costs. And now we're talking about adding costs to people that are going to be out of compliance. So I think it's kind of, I would caution the speeding up of them dipping into their pockets. If one side we're saying we're trying to reduce their costs, and another we're going to maybe speed it up. I don't know what the sign costs to a small business. I'm guessing it's a probably large expense.
So I can provide a little background on that. So I've looked at I pulled some permits as part of this discussion of previous sign permits. The signs range anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000 is a typical sign.
Isn't there, did you just say there was only one in the village that was out of, or I guess of the ones that you looked at was out of compliance?
Yes, of the ones that we know, only one is out of compliance, but we've only done the measurement, I think, on 6 businesses, 3 in each of the shopping malls.
I would have no problem leaving it at 5 years. The sign was put up in compliance with our codes. They didn't go against anything, and to change it afterwards and say that now you've got to buy a new sign right away or within 2 years, I don't think is fair. So I don't have a problem with 5 years.
And as the ordinance is, we have 5 years in it, correct?
Correct.
All right, any other comments, questions?
I have one more. Andy, when do you think you would complete the audit of the remaining signs? Any idea?
Well, my plan was, if the ordinance is passed, call up code enforcement, see if we can go out there in the next couple of weeks and take the measurements.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other comments or questions, so Clerk Allison, you're up again, please.
Trustee Farrell-Mayer.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Donnersberger.
No.
Okay. Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, that has been approved. Move on to ordinance 2023-08, sale and disposal of surplus material. John or Andy?
We need
Me.
a motion and a
Oh,
second for
sorry.
I'd like to move to pass ordinance 2023-08, an ordinance allowing for the disposal of surplus property.
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris and Sean, and again, my apologies. All right, now, John?
When we want to get rid of property that we own, vehicles, scrap metal, things that are no longer needed, we need permission from the board to sell them. And upon sale, the money is immediately turned over to the village. So we do this every year or so. So we have some scrap metal. We have a bunch of items in the police department that we're trying to get rid of that are just in storage in the annex of the Public Works building. So we request permission to sell the property listed in the ordinance. We typically put this on eBay or some other state-authorized website and just take bids or sell it, or we'll call around vendors and get 3 quotes for material. So that's how we dispose of excess material.
And anybody wondering, we do put our agenda online, so this information that John referenced as part of the ordinance is online. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, in that light, the list of things you're looking to sell is on the
Correct.
back there, so
Yep.
it's, Tom, it's what you indicated.
Well, I was talking about online.
Oh, yeah, it's
As opposed to paper. Yes, it is in paper. I see it, yes. Okay, I don't see or hear any questions or comments. Clerk Allison, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayer.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Donnersberger.
Aye.
It's been passed.
Thank you, that's been approved. Next one, would somebody like to make a motion for ordinance 2023-06?
I'll make a motion to pass 2023-06, an ordinance prohibiting non-local truck traffic on certain village-owned streets.
I'll second.
Thank you, Brenda and Sean. John?
You have before you basically an ordinance prohibiting non-local traffic on every village street. We've had a number of incidences where trucks get lost and they end up tearing up property. The nearest one, the most common one as of late is Osceola near Wolf Road. There's a very sharp curve there. Trucks just sometimes use it as a shortcut. I don't know why, but they do, or they get lost and they kind of meander through the village. This would allow the police department to issue citations in the event that we have non-local truck traffic in the village. This exempts a moving truck, or if you have a delivery of material to your house, that's fine. But if you're just going to use Blackhawk Trail as a bypass for Wolf Road, if there's a tie-up on Wolf Road and you want to take a shortcut, you can't do it. And it's based on license plate number. It makes it easier to enforce. The penalties start at $250 for the first offense, $500 for the second, and $750 thereafter. It's every street in the village, so I would request that the board pass this ordinance.
And it's every village-owned street,
Every
so not
village-owned street.
Wolf
so
Road,
Wolf and
Plainfield.
Joliet Road, Plainfield Road would not count.
Questions?
Well,
Brenda?
on the ordinance, it says here, on certain village-owned streets. So do
Correct,
we need
and
to-
then if you read the exhibit, it's every street in the village.
Okay.
So Exhibit A has all the streets.
Every street, like including 70th too, and
70th Place does not get, is trailer traffic only, so it's not,
And I would say that would count as local because their business is there too.
And nobody would be taking that for a shortcut.
no, they wouldn't.
Dead end, yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments? We are rolling along. Clerk, was there
70th place.
comment?
To a
No?
good question, though.
Okay, Clerk Allison, please.
Trustee O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayor.
Aye.
Trustee Donnersberger.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Thank you all. That has been approved. Next one, ordinance for a bids for the sign at Village Hall. Somebody like to make the motion, please?
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2023-07, an ordinance awarding a bid for a sign at Village Hall.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean and Rita. Andy?
Yes, so with the construction of Acacia Drive over the last few years, that resulted in the removal of the Village Hall sign, the old Village Hall sign, which was in very poor condition. It was pretty much only being held up by the bushes that were there. And so the village on February 7th put out an RFP. Email alerts were sent to 44 companies who are subscribed to our bid notice alerts. And in addition to that, we posted in the LaGrange Doings. We did respond to multiple inquiries from multiple vendors. However, only one business submitted a bid. Usually, that's not a very good sign. However, I think we kind of got lucky in this one. The only bid received was from Parvin Kloss Sign Company. It came in about $3,000 under budget. It came in at $21,970. We had about $25,000 estimated. And it worked out quite well because Parvin Kloss is actually the company whose design we based our bid upon. So it worked out perfectly. You have here this sign. You've seen it before. And in addition to that, Parvin Kloss, they did work all over the area. They had good recommendations from Winnetka, Willowbrook, and Wheeling. And so we recommend approval of this sign so we can get it installed.
So I do have a couple questions. On the signage, do we have to have the bricks? Why wouldn't we use the faux stone, just like at the corner?
It is faux stone. It will be. It's foam.
Pardon?
It's going to be pretty much the same material as the one at Arrowhead.
It's going to be, okay. And the other question I have is that the companies have to come in to sign the tabulation sheet on March 1st by 10 a.m.?
They have to submit their bid by 10 a.m., and then we open the bid immediately after.
Okay.
And in this case, the vendor was here for the bid opening.
Yeah, they don't have to be in attendance, but they were in attendance, the one that did submit.
But because it's a bid, you have a form, you put, if there were multiple, you would list them all
Yeah, and it's a
out.
public opening. Anyone's welcome. Usually only the bidders come so they can see if they are going to get the bid. But it is a public opening.
I just wondered, the company that did the sign at Plainfield and Wolf, they didn't submit a bid at all?
Nope, we only got one bid submitted.
Okay, thanks.
Received the, was that RFP?
I don't know for certain if they are one of the 44 companies that received it.
Can you check on that to see? I mean, they did a great job at the corner.
I can, yeah.
That would be nice.
Any other questions? Or comments? Okay, Clerk Allison, a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayor.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee O'Loughlin.
No.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
And Trustee Donnersberger.
No.
All right, that has been approved. Thank you. Next item.
I make a motion to accept the following task orders for Thomas Engineering. Ditch work in the amount not to exceed $13,789.15. And road work in the amount not to exceed $92,010.98.
Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sean and Eileen. John?
These are two task orders pertaining to work that Public Works Department wishes to have performed. The ditch work is basically surveying for our annual ditch maintenance program. We want to be able to know what we need to do as far as maintenance goes, so they will come out and do surveying work for us, and then we will bid out the formal work to be done later on this next fiscal year. The second task order is for the engineering for the road work for an upcoming our summer road construction project. This includes all phases of engineering from phase 1 engineering, design engineering, and construction management. So this will be part of the capital program that we will be looking at later on in this meeting.
Thank you, John. Questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Clerk Allison, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Donnersberger.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayer.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
And Trustee O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Thank you.
That has been approved. Thank you. Next item.
Would be the engineering services agreement.
I make a motion to pass extension of the village's engineering agreement with Thomas Engineering for another 3-year term.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean and Chris. John?
We have 3-year terms typically on our engineering services agreement with whatever engineering company is authorized to do work for the village. So when we brought on Thomas 3 years ago, we had the same agreement. We're just extending it, and probably next month we will be getting the same thing for Strand Associates. So it's just part of their contract of doing business for the village.
Anybody? Anything?
Is there an amount for this, or is this open-ended?
It's open-ended for 3 years, and you have in the email and the packet the rates that we'll pay for the respective principals within the firm. So the president of the company gets one rate, design engineer gets another rate, field inspectors get another rate. All of them are within pennies of each other, and we're looking at about a 2.5% increase per year since the first contract with Thomas Engineering. So it's within parameters of what other engineers are charging. And it's really project-based. And when the engineer submits the task order, they will list their personnel costs as it pertains to the task order.
They break it out by engineer, by design, and how many hours and how much. So
Correct.
that's how they get their total. You can see the spreadsheet of how they get there. Okay. Anybody else?
In that case, I need to ask who made the motion.
Sean.
And a second?
Seconded by Chris.
Thank you.
And if you're ready, we can have the roll call vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
And Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayer.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
And Trustee Donnersberger.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. That has been approved. We're moving along. Would somebody like to make a motion about the second reading of the budget?
Sure, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for the purposes of discussing the 2023-2024 annual budget and capital plan.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Chris and Brenda. John? Oh, a vote? We have to have a vote to open it, so that would be a roll call vote?
Yes, sir.
Got it. Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayer.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Donnersberger.
Aye.
All right, so now we have opened the public hearing. Now,
Okay.
John.
Thank you. So this is available online, or if you want an actual copy of the proposed budget, please ask Village Hall. We will print one off for you. So I'm going to try to do this a little bit differently than we have in prior years. Typically, I drone about the lines in the budget, and my eyes glaze over. I can't even imagine how your eyes go when I'm reading the budget. So I'm going to give a high-level overview. We're going to talk about some interesting things or capital plans that we're going to be doing for the year. This is a public hearing, so when I'm done, you get to ask questions, not only the board, but the audience as well. So first off, we have a balanced budget, which means that the revenues that we expect to get in will meet or exceed the expenses. Now, our needs are always great, and we have to make some hard decisions about where we're going to spend our money. But because this board is fiscally prudent and conservative. We've been able to live within our means since I've been here the last 8 years. Actually before that, but even more so during the last 8 years. So to this end, we've been able to save our money, and we have some pretty decent cash reserves. We even have a self-imposed limit on how much cash we have to have on hand at any given moment in case of emergency, or such as when Cook County doesn't give us our property taxes, or the state of Illinois doesn't give us our sales taxes because of a budget dispute with the governor. So we have a safety margin already set aside that comes off the top that we can't have for spending. Also this year, because of sale of tollway property and some good budget management practices by the staff and the board, we're going to end up with about $580,000 that we can use for special projects. And we're going to be talking about that at the end of the budget process when the board is setting some goals for the new year. So we have basically 3 buckets of money that we receive in terms of revenue. One is the general fund, and that's taxes and fees. Property taxes for the general fund is about $1 million. You pay that directly. We also get utility taxes, state revenue from the state of Illinois, obviously, sales tax, income tax, personal property tax. We even get a line item for tax on cannabis sales. The locally imposed taxes, we have our non-home rule sales tax. We have video gaming, which is surprising. We're going to collect this year $145,000 in video gaming taxes. We have business licenses, tickets that our police officers write, and various grants. For the special funds, we have grant funding, we have special property taxes, the bond issue that we issued in 2014, that shows up on your tax bill. We're part of a special recreation district, CSPAR, that shows up on your tax bill as well. Motor fuel tax, and we have a 3-cent per gallon non-home rule motor gas tax that we impose, so we'll get about $35,000 from that. That and other fines all goes into the coffers. For 85% of the village who is on village water, you pay a water and sewer fee to the village. If you're the 15% not, you pay your fee and property taxes to LaGrange Highlands. That being said, we're going to generate about $6 million in revenue. Now, for the operating budget, we know how many paper clips we're going to buy. We know what we're going to pay our people. We know what health insurance costs are going to be. We know, in general, what our plans are for the village. So those are very easy to predict. And in general, they stay within inflationary limits. We have been hit hard by inflation, but all in all, we're going to stay within our means because our income is rising, so our expenses, so we're going to get the job done. Are we going to do everything we want to do? No, but we're going to deliver the core services for our residents. The cops will show up when you call them. Public Works will show up when the snow comes or when the storm drains need to be cleared. Admin will be here to answer your questions for setting up the board meeting, running the village in general. So that's where your tax dollars go. Andy, if you want to call up the first screen, we have some goals for each of the departments that we're going to talk about, and Andy's going to take this over. I got kind of tired with the budget that I create, and I asked Andy and Lisa to kind of just blow it up and highlight some of the neat things we're going to be doing. And so Lisa did the yeoman's job of this. Andy helped develop it, but it is really kind of fascinating. So Andy, if you want to take it, because this is really your creation.
All right. Well, we'll get started. Again, we're going to highlight some of the more interesting or significant projects in the various departments. We're going to talk about the capital program, proposed fee schedule changes, and then to end it all, we're going to give a brief synopsis of each of the potential village board goals. And this is kind of to act as a primer for the upcoming discussion of the board members on what goals they want to focus on in the next year. So for the first item that we want to do in admin is scanning and digitization of our village records. We have $20,000 budgeted for the implementation of a cloud-based management system. What we really want to do is to scan and put into a virtual database all the important documents that we have in village storage. Things like building permits, building plans, subdivision plans, engineering plans, and more. And the idea is to get all of this scanned so it's much easier to find, to access, save a lot of staff time, and to be able to actually get an idea of what exactly we have, because we have so much material that's been built up over the last 60 years that it takes a lot of digging. So along with that, we want to do record destruction. Last year, the village destroyed 150 banker boxes of old material, unneeded material. And be clear, I'll make this clear right now, even when we scan and digitize something, a lot of times we'll still keep the physical copy, but there are a lot of materials that we don't need. We don't need water billing receipts from 1982. We got 3 boxes of those at Public Works. So we want to slowly over time figure out what needs to get scanned and what we need to destroy. It is also important to mention that since we are a public body, whenever we destroy documents, we have to receive approval from the Secretary of State, because there's laws on retention periods for different kinds of documents. Another thing we want to do is Village Hall beautification. A couple of years ago, the bushes in front of Village Hall were pulled out. Over time, a couple of trees have died, and so we want to replace these things and keep up the aesthetics of Village Hall. Finally, in the admin department, we want to purchase and implement a budgeting software program. Currently, the village uses Excel to develop its annual budget, and it's worked well. A lot of balanced budgets, increased funds, etc. But the best practice in municipalities these days is a focused budget program. And so we have $15,000 allocated to try to find the right program and implement it. It'll help with future planning, future presentation, future audits and record keeping, and so we're excited about that. Next, for our police department, the first thing is continued development of our body camera program. We had funds in this current fiscal year for this. This program is still being developed. There has to be a policy developed. The IT infrastructure has to be set up, and the officers need to be trained. However, in the next fiscal year, we have $15,000 budgeted to continue this, and hopefully, and I know Mike, I think we might talk about it a little bit later in his report, but I know he's working hard on getting this set up right now. Next is continued expansion of our license plate reader program. We have right now a couple cameras up around town as a trial period on license plate reader cameras. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, I missed something. I want to show a demo for our body cameras. David, can you bring up our demo video for our body cameras?
They're not paid actors.
That will be very evident, sure.
Oh, we actually are paid.
Not paid to act.
Yeah.
If I can comment, the view on the right is the body camera of the officer. The photo on the video on the left is the squad car camera. One of the reasons we went with squad car originally back in 2019 was we knew they were coming out with.
Thank you, Mike. Sorry.
Can you pause it, David?
Is there audio for this?
Yeah, there should be. We can't put audio on? Oh, okay. Well, you got the video.
Mike, if you could repeat that, I'm sorry, just because we're recording. It's hard to hear.
So the video on the right is the body camera on the officer. It's worn center mass on their chest area. The video on the left side is a squad car camera, and one of the reasons we originally went with WatchGuard was that we knew that they were coming out with this blended camera system of body cameras and the squad car camera. Blends into one scene. If we had a third officer or another officer wearing a body camera, you would have that view also being projected, and you'd be able to select the different cameras. In this situation, the officer has made the contact with the violator. He's come back to the squad car. He's checking him in the squad car, gets his results, and then he'll return to the violator and
Alleged violator.
Chief, can I ask you a question?
No.
Okay, thanks. Are the body cameras on all the time? Do the officers have the ability to turn them on, turn them off? Same with the dash cams? How does that work?
The body cameras can be turned on by the officer, and they can be turned on and worn all day long if they want to. Normal practice is that they would be turned on when there's an encounter with anybody that they deal with. They come in, they meet you out in the parking lot. The camera should be on because they don't know where that encounter is going to go. If you're going to attack them, if they're going to attack you, whatever the situation might be. They will be activated automatically if the overhead lights are turned on, if the car's involved in an accident, anything of that nature.
There's obviously going to be substantial training with this.
Not really. It's a very pretty basic. You push the button on the front of the body camera, and it turns on. You push it twice, and it goes off.
Where is the images stored in real time?
We're storing them on our local hard drive in the PD.
So this would be stored in here at the same time that this is all going on?
No, they're immediately stored on the camera. The cameras are good for 12 hours of storage. I'm sorry, 10 hours of storage, and that's by state mandate.
Then you have to upload it?
Right, and that is done when the officer comes back into the station. He puts the camera back into a docking bay, and then it's downloaded into our server. If we had gone with a cloud system, it would have been $60,000 a year for cloud storage. And I thought that was a little ridiculous, as opposed to buying our own server for $12,000.
So will there be any kind of order or something that will let the officers know exactly when the cameras have to go on so that they're not confused about it?
Yes, state law mandates how and when they have to be turned on.
Okay.
The only thing that we are going to negotiate, or that the union can request negotiation, is on the review by supervisors of the video on a monthly, weekly, to check up on how they're doing.
But there'll be no ambiguity amongst the officers as to when?
No.
Okay.
It's very cut and dry with the state law.
Can the officer erase the video on the camera, or?
I'm the only one that can erase it.
I suppose they could destroy the camera.
Yes,
That
before
would
it's
be
down.
bad.
Yes, they
Okay.
could. But none of our officers are that. I know that none of our officers are that way. My confidence in them.
But if they did destroy it, there would be repercussions, right?
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, that's got to be written into the state, too.
Mike, can you talk about the recording of the car camera, how that works?
The way that the car video works is that the overhead, when the overhead lights are turned on, the camera's activated. The officer can activate the camera too at any time while he's just driving around if he wanted to. There's a minute and a half preemptive recording. So if the example that they use in their sales pitch, the officer gets assigned a call and he's at Plainfield and Wolf Road. He gets assigned to a call at Indian Head Plaza for an armed robbery. So as he's southbound on Wolf Road going to the call, the camera's recording all the time, a minute and a half recording in history. And the witness will say, oh, he just went northbound on Wolf Road. Well, the two cars did this. Well, we would have that captured on the video. Once the officer returns to the station, there's an antenna on the southeast corner of the building, and Wi-Fi, it's downloaded to our server again.
Thank you.
It then matches up, the computer program then matches these up so you have the side-by-side?
Yes. The body camera, there's a docking bay inside the squad car also where the officer will, let me backtrack, the officer goes into the computer in the station, logs in, he puts in his information, his star number, name, and 10 seconds later, the docking bays are chirping and it tells him which camera he takes out. So now that camera has been assigned to him for that day with his name displayed on the recordings. He comes back, he has to also program it by putting it into the docking bay in the squad car, and then it links the two, like you said, between these two videos.
Would you have a rough estimate? Is this going to be recording 10% of the day or 90% of the day shift?
It's all up to the officer. The officer can put it on when he walks out the door and turns it off when he goes to the bathroom, you know, type of deal. I hope they were smart enough to turn it off when they went to the bathroom. But, or they're eating lunch. You know, again, it's all dependent on what the officer wants to do as far as, and I want to call it excess recording, but he can record it all day long if he wanted to. State law mandates him at certain times. Like I said, any citizen encounter, and he can't say, well, I'm talking to Tom Henshaw, nothing's going to happen to, you know, between me and Tom Henshaw. Well, you might have had a bad day that day and you go off on that officer, and now it's not captured. So that's why any citizen encounter, he has to turn the camera on.
How about, do you have an idea on the cars when they come in? How much is uploaded or transferred? Is it a little or a lot? Don't need it, you know.
Yeah, I couldn't even give you a percentage, but to give you an idea, the hard drive that we have, and I don't even know the size of the hard drive in the server for the squad car camera, we've had it for 5 years now, and we're nowhere near capacity on that hard drive. I'll research that for you and let you know.
Not needed, but thank you. Any other questions, comments?
How long do you have to store the videos?
I believe it's 2 years.
All right, thank you, Chief. So this is part of the budget process. So Andy, I think you're picking up the baton again?
Yeah, and you know what? Before we get back to the presentation, we also want to give you a demonstration again of our license plate reader cameras. So Mike, yeah, he's back there. Mike or David, can you bring up the other camera demonstration, and I'll let Mike explain this one too.
So, how can I do this easily? These are the images that come up after a plate is entered to be run. In this case, we just, the witness, the victim, only knew the numbers to be 24. There was a 2 and a 4 in the license plate number, so that was entered in. So now we get every plate from these images were only from Indian Head Park cameras. And as you can see, Dave, can you go back up to the top? Keep a little farther up.
Because you can put in the time and date, right?
That's the time and date on the left side. And we have to, for our case right now, we put in to demo the reason for our search. So for that time period, that's what, Dave, what did you do there? Oh, just for today. There were 72 plates that came back with a 2 and a 4 in it. Consecutive, there were 2 4s. So it could be 2924, L24. And so these are all the results for this 24-hour period, basically.
And one of the neat aspects of this is, I mean, it helps in crime solving, because if a crime happens, then you can look up the plate. But it also does give real-time alerts if a tagged vehicle, like a stolen vehicle per se, were to drive through town. The police officers get an alert. Is it on the tablets or
on cell phones? It's
on the cell phones that stolen vehicle has hit this point, is going through town.
We actually had one 3 weeks ago, the night of the last board meeting. Actually, it was the Plainfield and Wolf Road camera hit, and it just so happened that the DuPage County task force was out that night, so they had 20 squad cars, 20 unmarked cars out trolling for, stolen vehicles or carjackings going on, and they also have access to our cameras, so it notified them that there was a stolen stolen vehicle that went down southbound on Wolf Road. They located it in Indian Head Plaza. Before they were able to secure the vehicle, the driver got back into the car, drove up over the sidewalk in the plaza parking lot, and took off westbound on Joliet Road. and they were able to stop the car on the tollway with the spike sticks. They were able to, puncture the tires on that vehicle. So we've had one arrest. It wasn't our arrest, but the offenders were arrested. So.
And Mike, we have a couple cameras installed that we kind of use as a demo, and later, I believe tonight, you will be talking about what you would like to do. This was a project to get a few cameras and then expand that if we were happy and they worked and all that, correct?
Correct. But going back to, Dave, can you put it back? Okay, so again, we can select, if we have a specific license plate, we put that license plate number in there. And as Dave's scrolling down there, if we only knew that it was a convertible, if we only knew it was a hatchback, we can also search only on those vehicles. When there were questions about the semi-truck traffic on Wolf Road, we are able to put in semi-truck plates, and we had the results for the time period. Colors, it'll even work on a decal. So if you have your, my kid's an honor student, and we knew that, you could put that information in, and the system can pick up on that information from a bumper sticker.
Mike, you mentioned that the DuPage Task Force could access our cameras. Do we have that ability to see our neighboring communities' cameras if for some reason we wanted
right
to
now,
check?
we've shared with 150, don't know the number, but it's about 150 other agencies we've shared our cameras with, and they've shared back with us. And they're scattered across today. ATF, the Alcohol, Fire, and Tobacco out of Tennessee, they asked for permission to access our camera system. So we shared with them, and they gave us access to their cameras.
And I didn't say this in the body camera, but state requirement is that we have to have the body cameras by 2025?
We are 2025 for our agency, but the direction of the board, we went ahead and we got that earlier. And Andy is still working on the grants, I believe, for...
Yes, so we are applying to IRMA, which is our risk management agency. We're pretty confident we'll get that grant, which is going to be about $10,000. And then just recently, the state of Illinois released its grant program for this. And so we are in the process of reviewing the guidelines for that. And as long as we meet the criteria, we're going to submit an application for that too.
Thank you. And I believe this project for the license plate reading camera was a village goal from a couple years ago. So we'll be talking about goals later, but this is an example of a village board goal, I believe.
And just to counter one question that we had a while ago, no, we can't manipulate the camera to look into the bedroom windows of anybody. These are stationary cameras that do not move. Yes.
And they're really focused on the license plate, right?
Yes.
We really can't see if there's 4 people in the car or...
Well, here, these are the pictures that you see. We also get multiple pictures. Slow down on your rotation there. So on the row that is displaying, you'll see that all 4 of those pictures are the same car. Slower the speeds, the more duplicate pictures you're going to get. So you really can't have a true count if you have slow-moving vehicles. So like when we said the semi-truck trailers, whatever number, 1,000 vehicles for the month, that's not a true number, but when I went through manually, it was only like 50 off. So it does give you somewhat of a true reading of the vehicles that you're searching for.
Chief, I have a question.
Second question, by the way. Go ahead.
When you talked about looking in the bedroom windows, I remember that conversation. I think also brought up that night was facial recognition. Do the body cams have that capability? Like if an officer has it on and talking, is there any facial recognition that they can be alerted that, hey, this is a suspect that somebody in the neighboring town might be looking for? Is there any capability like that you know of?
There might be capability, but it's not with our system.
Ours. Okay, thank you.
It may be down the road, Sean, right, if we can read license plates. All right, any other questions for Chief? Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mike. David, can you bring back the presentation, please? But all right, so we have 65,000 budgeted for license plate reader cameras in the next fiscal year. In addition to that, we have 20,000 budgeted to purchase standard firearms for each officer. At this time, each officer has to provide their own firearm, and so we are in a situation in which we have to buy a variety of ammunition types. And so the implementation of a standard firearm is really to help with storage management, which is something the police department desperately needs, as well as training with a standard firearm for each officer. And finally, there's an asterisk next to this one. This is a program, project, whatever you want to call it, that's dependent on the award of grant monies. But if possible, we're going to be applying for what's called a COPS grant. And this is a grant that would cover the cost, 75% of the salary and benefits for 2 new officers for 3 years. Now on Public Works. So the first thing is a continued implementation of our GIS mapping program. We've got this we just got this started this year. I know some of you might remember Thomas Brannon, who's our kind of GIS intern. He was doing a lot of work in collecting data points on village trees in particular. But this is a software that provides the village with real-time and historical data on a vast variety of infrastructure, assets, and items throughout the village, inventories of everything from trees to storm structures to street signs. It can also help and our long-term vision is also to incorporate our scanned documents in our database into this. The idea that eventually we can click on an individual parcel or home, and then it can pull up all the documents associated with that home, original building plans, all the building permits pulled. So it's a very neat program. We want to continue to expand it, so we have 15,000 budgeted for that in the next year. In addition, we have the tree program. We have an annual tree program. Thanks to a grant we received through the Morton Arboretum last year, we were able to up that program. Usually we had planted about 10 to 15 trees. Last year we were able to plant about 35. And so this year we have $35,000 budgeted to kind of continue on the gains that we made last year. And we'll be continuing to look out for grant funding from the Morton Arboretum and others in this regard. But a couple things we want to do is, in addition to planting trees, this also covers our tree maintenance, and Public Works is implementing a tree farm, which I'll let Don and Justin talk a bit more later in their report. We also have $50,000 budgeted for storm sewer work, specifically in regards to ditches, culvert repair, and surveying. This is a $40,000 increase from last fiscal year. We really want to make a lot of gains in improving the right-of-way, stormway drainage conditions throughout town. And that's one of the task orders that you approved just a little bit ago. We also have $20,000 budgeted for new street signs. This is on top of $20,000 that's, we have $20,000 in the current fiscal year as well. Right now, Public Works has ordered 3 sample signs, which when they're in, we're going to set them up outside of Village Hall for residents to see, and then we're going to do a survey in the smoke signals online, all of our platforms, to get resident feedback on what design they like the most. We also have $7,500 budgeted for annual street sweeping program. This is something we started this year, and we want to continue. It's very beneficial to our stormwater management, clearing out leaves and other debris that go into the structures. It also helps improve the aesthetics of the village, especially after fall or leaf vacuuming periods. Now on to our capital program. So the biggest capital program item is, of course, the pump house rehabilitation. The village is unable to repair the current pumps. Parts of the pumps are no longer available because they're very old, and this is a project that is crucial to ensuring the village's water system for years to come. Now, this is a big project, so the cost is going to be split over 2 fiscal years. In the next fiscal year, 23 to 24, we have $900,000 budgeted, and the year after that, it's going to be around $850,000. We also have $65,000 to purchase and equip a new police squad vehicle. The average lifespan for these vehicles is about 7 years. We have 7 of them in our fleet, so we purchase one every year to replace the oldest one. We also have $375,000 budgeted for our road program. The roads slated for the next year's program are 65th place, 70th place, including the Public Works parking lot, which is definitely in bad shape, and Arrowhead Trail. These 3 roads are the 3 roads in town with the worst condition. We will talk, I think, a little bit more about this later too, but Thomas Engineering has an inventory on the conditions of every single village-owned road, and these are the 3 that are the lowest, so they were given the top priority for repair. And then this is another project with an asterisk. It's grant funding dependent, and that is water main slip lining. This is a way of repairing water mains. Our focus here is on Joliet Road and Roofers Road, which is 2 areas where we have the most prevalent water main breaks. And this is a $950,000 project that would encompass both of them. We're going to be on the lookout for grants from the state. We are also submitting Sorry, I thought I heard something. Then we're also submitting to Congressman Caston as part of the federal earmarks process. Now I'm going to go into the fee schedule and go over some of the highlights there. So the first one is, the first proposal we have is, and this is something the Finance Committee has discussed quite a bit, is the removal of redundant and not applicable fees. So in our fee schedule, we have roughly 380 line items. We want to get rid of about 90 of them. These are fees for businesses that do not exist in town and that are not likely to exist in town. There's probably about 12 different type of contractor fees. We want to just consolidate that down to 1, things of that nature. Additionally, we've heard a lot of concerns, we've heard concern from businesses about the high price of business licenses in town. And it is true, we do have higher business license costs than our surrounding communities. This is partly because we have a limited commercial tax base. However, that being said, at the direction of the Finance Committee, the current proposal is to eliminate sign fees, which is a big aspect of a business license for most businesses. Shopping malls, signs that are over a certain square footage, including billboards, would still be charged, but this would eliminate sign fees for most village businesses and save the average business $275 a year.
Andy, can you take a question?
Absolutely.
What's the estimated impact of not charging the sign fees?
It's going to be probably around, I think, 8 to 10 grand.
Thank you.
And then the less exciting thing is water and sewer price increases. Now, nobody wants to do this, but the general policy of the village is to raise the prices of water and sewer based upon the recommended numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So the Bureau, they track overall inflation, but they also track industry-specific inflation. And so the cost increase in water and sewer maintenance industry over the last year has been 4.5%. And so that's where we got this figure from. And this is something that is worth mentioning for the fee schedule and the rest of the budget. All of this is going to be finalized in April. These are the draft right now. And then finally, then that final section of this is board goals. I'm going to go over a little synopsis of each of the potential board goals that have been identified by members of the board. Our intention is for this to be a primer for an interesting and constructive discussion. And so you have right here, this is a tally sheet, kind of an informal tally sheet from the Board of Trustees as it stands right now of 12 different board goals and each one of your rankings. And so the top ranking right now is to save for potential Wolf Road landscaping. That's going to be the first item discussed. The lowest item right now is Sacagawea Park cement sidewalk. That's going to be the last item discussed. So first item is savings for potential Wolf Road landscaping. This is funding for landscaping along Wolf Road above and beyond the rehabilitation that the county would do if the road is expanded. In our current fiscal year, the village board set aside $80,000 for this, and this goal would just add to that money. Second item is a triangle facade study for the implementation of a business development district or special services area in the triangle. And the funds for this would go to hire a consultant to conduct this study. And this kind of study is necessary under state law whenever a municipality implements one of these special financing districts. The special financing districts, whether it's the business development district or the special services area, the appealing thing about it is that it is essentially self-funding. It doesn't take from the village's general fund. And it's self-funding by either implementing a special sales tax or property tax, depending on the type of district, specifically only for businesses or properties within the area, so within the triangle area. The third ranked item currently is Sacagawea Park plantings, trees and mulch for the landscaping and plantings, and I think also the mulch of the playground equipment. Next item is the comprehensive zoning code review and land use plan. This would be used to hire a consultant to guide the village through an update to its comprehensive plan, as well as rewriting and updating the village's zoning and building codes. So the village currently follows 2012 building codes, and the village is currently operating under its 2015 comprehensive plan. A lot has changed in the last decade. These things are in need of updating. The village's zoning code often has some convoluted and conflicting languages in parts. And so an updated comprehensive plan, updated building codes, and a updated zoning code are important for future development, land use, and sustainability in the village. Next item is frontage roads and Flag Creek improvements. This is funding for landscaping along Keokuk and Frontage Road above and beyond the rehabilitation that the tollway will do at this location. So with the work of the tollway, unfortunately, the slope along Plainfield Road and Frontage Road has been pretty much entirely ripped up. And so this is funds to add landscaping and improvements beyond what the tollway will do in its rehabilitation. Next is household stormwater grants. This is a program in which the village would reimburse homeowners for a portion of the cost of stormwater mitigation projects on their property. So with older stormwater management systems throughout the village and the increasing quantity of heavy rains impacting the village, and a number of residents and neighborhoods. The justification for this type of program is that it would help these residents make improvements to their property to mitigate damages, to mitigate the effects for themselves and their neighbors. Next is the allocation of $10,000 for a grant program to help residents purchase Ring cameras. Justification being that it will help enhance safety in the village and provide a greater sense of safety for individual homeowners as well. And then the next one is $350,000 for triangle facade improvements. And this is different than the triangle facade study. This is $350,000 that would come from the village's funds directly, that would be used in tandem with, if he wants to be part of it, the landlord of the Indian Head Plaza. And the idea here is that by improving the facade, improving the aesthetics of the area, it's more desirable to develop, it's more desirable for business to locate, it's more desirable for consumers to go and shop, and it improves the overall look and feel of the community. Next is $300,000 for Black Hawk Park improvements, anything from a sports court, variety of landscaping, dog run. These are a couple items that we've heard requests from residents for in the past. I know specifically the dog run has come up, and the justification here is just to increase recreational activities in the park. And then we have $50,000 as a potential goal for an electronic sign. The idea being that this would be an efficient way to relay a variety of different information to residents passing throughout the village. Next is $200,000 for Sacagawea Park playground equipment. This park is probably about 25 years old, and the park equipment hasn't been replaced since its original installation. It's starting to get rusty and could eventually become a safety issue. Along with that, we have $50,000 for Sacagawea Park cement sidewalk. This would be an ADA compliant pathway and would be especially helpful for walkers going through the park and residents utilizing wheelchairs. And so once again, this is the current rankings of the budget goals. And with that, I think I'll hand it over to Mayor Hinshaw to start this discussion.
Thank you, Andy. John, I wanted to thank you, Andy, Helia, Lisa, for your work on the budget. I think it's one of the more important things that we do each year, and I think we have 5 years in a row as receiving the Distinguished Financial Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award.
Thank you.
I want to cover briefly the history of the village goals. I think Brenda and I are the longest serving members of the board, and when we got on the board, I think money is tight was the answer. We were leasing police cars and different things, you know, and as we said earlier, we buy a new car every year. So after a few years, we got finances in order and we had some excess money, and the board thought it would be a good idea to try to figure out what we wanted to do with that money. So this is where we are today. And this year, with the approximate $583,000 is the biggest amount that we've had to talk about as far as village board goals. And again, I've said this before at other meetings, but the way it works, these notes, the one line item are estimates, they're ideas, and if the village board approves that, then the work is done to investigate what it costs, what policies, what procedures, if any, and then it comes back to the board to say, now we've done our work, and I'll use the sidewalk at Sacagawea Park to say the real cost, we have 3 quotes and it's $42,000 on average or whatever it is, and then the board would vote yes or not to do it. So the board is voting to look into it tonight and hopefully approve everything, but there's that second step. And last thing, it's not on the board goals, and David, if you could put that back up, please, for the discussion. The next agenda item we have is the facility study, and that is well over $1 million of stuff, work needed in our village, and so that did not make the list because this was started around the first of the year. So with that, I will turn it over to the board for what items you want to talk about and hopefully approve tonight to be village goals for the 2023-2024.
A public hearing on the budget first? Was it? Or
I think we
chance
did
for
that.
public comment?
This is all part of the public hearing process.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, trustee, the public hearing is still open, so,
Right.
you know.
Just it was a separate item, line item on the agenda, so that's why I was.
Right, no, it's good clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Well, further clarification, does that mean we take remarks from residents?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, when do we do that, John?
I think after the board discusses the goals, or
Discusses the goals and then
public comment.
Public comments, and then what, we approve the goals and then, or?
I would recommend that we discuss the goals, we get a sense, we take public comment, and then over the next 3 weeks, the board privately, because we want to avoid Open Meetings Act violations, they communicate their goals to you, and then we can have that as part of the April budget process.
So approving them at the April
meeting, yes.
Okay. I thought we were doing that tonight, but wrong again. All right. So any comments about the village potential goals?
Sure, I'll add one. The first goal was $300,000 or $350,000 for Wolf Road improvements. We had $80,000 last year with that. If we use all $300,000 of that, that's going to pretty much cut out a couple of the other goals after the fact. What latitude do we have to reduce that amount to, say, 100,000, or keep what we had the previous year at 80 and have more funds for some of the other things?
I think you have all the latitude in the world. The board is deciding.
Yeah, and Charlie, one of the comments I was going to make is if we took the first four, being Wolf Road, the Triangle, Study, I wrote down here Park. I don't remember what the third one was, sorry. My notes.
Sacagawea Park.
Sacagawea Park, and the comprehensive rezoning, that came out to 460, which still left 123. So the point is that you could take the first four at face value right now and still have 123. But to your point, yeah, do you take some money off and instead of doing 4 or 5 goals, maybe do 6 or 7? So definitely open. One question that I had, and I don't know if anybody can answer this, is on the stormwater grant, the 250. Are there going to be maximums that we would go up to for a resident, so it's not one resident that gets 249,000?
I'll take that. Okay. That's part of the details that the board would figure out. So is it a 50-50? Yeah. We don't know.
Discuss up to 25,000 per resident or something.
Or 5,000, and is it 50-50 or whatever? Yes.
Yeah, I'll say really quick on that. From our research, that this type of program exists in a couple different towns. I know Downers Grove in particular has a pretty robust stormwater grant program, and I think their number is something like 4,000, something like that. It's like 50% of the cost up to 4,000, something like that. But there's different numbers depending. Every town does it a bit differently if they have this type of program. So.
And that's another example where it says 50-50, but that's one of the details. It could be 60-40, whatever.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I had just a comment on the $350,000 for frontage road, Flag Creek improvements, landscaping. Now, that is also going to be part of the county's responsibility to restore. Am I correct in that, or IDOT's
This would be over and above any restoration required by the county or the tollway.
Okay, well, I guess my thought is, unless we know what they're going to do, I don't really want to commit $350,000, which is a big chunk of our reserves, to do further improvements. I mean, they might do enough that people are happy with it. At this point, that's an unknown. So I guess that I would have an objection to that.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and it's a much smaller piece of land than we're looking at on Wolf Road. We're looking at a much larger stretch of property on Wolf and affecting definitely more homeowners. So, yeah, I concur with you, Rita.
This is going all the way down Flat Creek. It's not just going on the frontage road but it's going all the way down Flat Creek. And that because from our understanding currently is that they're not going to be putting up the evergreens that were taken down, et cetera. And that, so that's where this is coming into play.
I don't think that's correct. I think they're planning on replacing what they've taken down. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but my understanding was county and tollway were going to get that back to as close as we had it before.
What we have is from a quote, upon completion of the Tollway Plainfield Road Bridge reconstruction work, the construction entrance will be removed in this area. That's close to the corner for anybody who doesn't know. And the ditch flow to the creek will be reestablished to its pre-construction condition. They will be installing topsoil, seed, and erosion control blanket after the tollway's work is completed. And I think that's, and the slope, no, I'm sorry, that's it.
Yep, because the grading is all gone. It's flat land underneath the bridge now, which needs to be taken care of.
I'm not saying, yeah, it's in horrible shape, but again, they're saying pre-existing condition, pre-construction condition. If it winds up not being that, then I think we clearly push back on that and ask for more. But in the way that I'm interpreting in the discussions that we've had with them, I felt that they were going to try to do the job to get it back to where it was.
Well, I mean, if it's great if they do.
Yeah, I just don't think we should settle for anything less, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that was item 5 on the list. Any thoughts about item 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, on item 1, I just wanted to clarify, we keep saying landscaping. Should we change that to landscaping and hardscaping? I mean, it should be for the entirety of whatever eventually is decided what should be done there.
I would say that, I believe, was the intent when this was first added, so, yeah, I would think, but again, the board is deciding here.
What hardscaping are you talking about?
To be determined. I mean, if we need retention walls in certain areas because of things and it's not adequate or we don't believe it looks visually appealing and we want to have a different stone that we need to pay for. I just didn't want to limit it to trees, bushes, and plantings. I wanted more of an open.
I would think the term landscaping could include hardscaping as well. However, we have our engineer here, Tony. If there are any retaining walls required, would that be a part of the engineering plans? Would you be able to come up to the microphone?
Pardon me?
This has the amounts.
You know, as you're coming up, like, didn't we have to spend some money out here on a little?
On Acacia, yes,
Yeah.
2 little retaining walls,
So
correct.
something similar to that if it came up.
Right, so if there's landscape modifications and drainage modifications that occur, whatever is needed to make it a safe condition will have to be done.
But wouldn't that be done by the contractors?
By the engineering
By the-
study and
yeah.
by the county's work?
Correct.
Yes, but I think Sean's point is Acacia Drive, it was not needed, but in trying to make it look beautiful is one of our goals.
We added
in talking to the associations, both Acacia and Wilshire Green, they asked, could we put in a small retaining wall, and we did.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me if the term hardscape goes in there, but I just feel it's all inclusive.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Sean, the first couple of them, number 1's 300,000, number 2 is 350, and number 3 is 350. So what am I missing?
Not in the order that Andy did. Not the order that Andy laid it out. It was 300, 40, 20, and 100,000.
Yeah, it was only, 40 for the,
40 for the triangle, 20 for the park, 100 for comprehensive rezoning, and 3 for Wolf Road is 460, which leaves us 123 from the 583 budget.
Yeah, he's looking at the other goals because we had 2 sets of goals.
I'm looking at
We don't have 2
I'm
sets
looking
of
at page
goals.
144 on the.
We have
on
2
your-
ways to rank them.
Correct.
Or
when
tally them.
When Andy was discussing it, you were saying ranking. The number 1 ranked goal was, or did I misinterpret that?
No.
It's up on the board.
Yeah, so there,
I
so
can't see that.
Yeah.
Do we have a copy of that?
If you, Dave, can you go back to the first slide of Wolf Road 300?
I think you should all have this.
Right, but as you went through,
Is it in the board
470.
packet?
Okay,
Right.
it's 145 on the package here, okay.
Okay, thank you.
right, so these first four slides that he ran comes up to the 460 number that I had. Oh, sorry, 45,000. I had 40. My apologies.
And that's the same summary of the spreadsheet or the chart that we had on the back or the screen before.
So why did we have 2 rankings then?
Well, okay, so.
How did we pick?
Yep,
decide?
originally, we went priority 1 to priority 10 or whatever we had the first year we did it. Not every board member voted or tallied like we have in this one. David, if you could put it up on the screen, you can see some trustees didn't pick, so when you did 1, it kind of skewed the number. So then the next year, we changed to putting 12 in this example as your number 1 vote, and then 11, then 9. And we did that for a few years, and then somebody had the idea, why don't we do an additional way to prioritize the goal, give everybody 78 points, which is arrived to by adding 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up to 12, and then you could allot them however you want. And again, this is only for purposes of discussion. So we have 2 ways to tally, but all the goals are the same.
So what would be really valuable to me, and maybe I'm just not finding it. No, it's not that. It's the one with the numbers.
The 78 total, yeah.
No, I mean with the dollar numbers.
Yeah.
I didn't write them down. Oh, I'm sorry, it's in
Yeah,
the
John,
narrative.
you want to add?
No, I got it, it's in the narrative.
In the prior year, we had two different methodologies, and they lined up. So when you ranked it on the first methodology versus the second, number 1, 2, and 3 were all the same.
Yeah.
So for me, it was, oh, this is kind of statistically valid, and there is concurrence about two different ways of looking at it. This year, no.
No. Oh, just an FYI, I believe Justin, he had looked at Sacagawea Park as far as the sidewalk goes, and he got a quote, I believe, 35 to 40,000 for Sacagawea.
That's accurate, yeah.
Yep.
So we modified the number down a little bit to 50,000, just.
What says 150 still on here?
Oh, on that, yeah. So on the presentation, I think all the board members should have a sheet that looks like this too, which is an empty tally sheet. This empty tally sheet is based upon the ranking that's presented, and this also has some adjusted numbers like the 50,000. You don't have this one?
No, I don't see it in the package that was given.
So we all voted, so I'm sorry.
It's just it's the same ranking, but with blanks.
So we all gave our input in terms of what we think was important. But then who attached the dollar amounts? Was that you, Tom?
Well, the dollar amounts were there from the very beginning. Now, like in the sidewalk, it was 150, and what we have tonight, I think, is 50, so that got changed. Sounds like you didn't know that, and my apologies. But the dollar amount was there the very first day. We may have refined it a little bit, but there was always a parentheses dollar amount at the end of the line item. And again, those are estimates. The details come if the board wants to move forward with a specific goal. So, what would the board like to do? I mean, I could suggest we go down 1, 2, 3, 4 and kind of say yes, no, and, but.
Well, let me, if I could, so if everybody has this sheet that looks, that's what you have up on the screen, right, Andy?
No.
We're 57 total points for the first item, and then 41, and then 40.
Yes, correct, correct. So if my math is correct, you can do 1, 2, 3, and 4. 7, 10, and 12. Again, 12 being changed to 50,000 rather than 150,000. And that would leave $8,000 left over. So the point I was trying to make earlier, Charlie, is if you don't change any of the numbers, you can knock off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those goals and still be under budget.
So
Yeah, I would knock down the 300, on the first one, from 300 to 100.
The first
Why,
one being
Charlie?
Wolf Road.
yeah, Wolf Road is what Charlie's talking about.
It opens up a greater scope with the other projects.
Yeah, and I wouldn't knock it down. I think it's a consistent board goal carried over from last year. And
It was 80,000 last year, so.
yeah, but they're trying to achieve up to $1 million as a guesstimate, and I think if we don't, if we cut that down too much, it's going to be just about impossible to ever get there.
And this is a rare year with the approximate 583,000. I'd say traditionally, we've been around 200,000. All right, so I heard one, knock it down. I heard one, keep it. Anybody else?
I vote to keep it also.
I'm in favor of keeping it where it's at.
All right, so I've got 4, keep, 1, knock down. Brenda?
Just keep it.
Keep it. All right, so are we all thumbs up on the first one? Maybe we can make progress here?
You got it.
I think everybody's thumbs up. All right, how about number 2? Triangle facade study for business development district or a special service area, estimated at 45,000. Thumb up?
fine with that.
Thumb up?
Yes.
Thumbs down for me.
Thumb down?
Eh.
Yes? I saw,
I have mixed emotions on that one.
Frankly, I mean, this is my area, but I'm confused by it as well. So I'd like to see it taken
well,
off.
this would be, again, if the board wants to go forward, you'd answer all the questions. This is a one-line item for the idea. Andy had the page of more detail, so there's a lot missing, but this goes to help the triangle facade, which I know you're
Yeah.
in favor of. And so if you want that, having a business development district or a special service area, this is required to do one of those.
This way we can move forward with a facade program.
Your mic's off. Your mic is on.
I turned it off. This way we can move forward with improvements in the Indian Head Plaza without having it come from the general fund. So we can achieve beautification without the
So
taxpayers
the study
paying.
will help us
Or
determine
potentially
where
do
to.
that, yeah.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and if you want, I can explain that a little more in detail. So you had, in order to set up a special financing district, let's say a business development district, a business development district allows you to put a special sales tax for all the businesses within that district. Then you collect those funds and you can use that for improvements, for a variety of physical improvements. In order to set up that district, under state law, you have to do a study. And it's best practice anyways, because then you'll have experts who can tell you, these are the conditions, this is what would help, this is the kind of special financing district that would be best. So it's best practice, it's also required under state law, and it's a means to getting to a place where you can raise revenue for these improvements without detracting from the general fund.
Through taxing the businesses that are in there?
Correct.
Yes.
So lowering or eliminating the sign fee that we had would help with a new tax that we would levy on them?
Well, and frankly, the tax is a sales tax, so it's
coming
really
from
not
the
the
consumer?
businesses, it's the consumer that would be
Coming from
paying.
the residents?
That's for the business development district, is a special service area on property tax? Or
Yes,
how is it?
yes.
So it could be on the business, Eileen, to your point, or it could be sales tax, which is in theory the customer, right? Or not in theory, is the customer. So I think I saw 4 thumbs up for this. And I see yes, 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 yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Sacagawea Park plantings,
no's?
trees, and mulch,
Any
20,000.
no's?
Yes.
See, thumb up,
Okay.
thumb up, yes, yes. Chris, Eileen,
Number 3, Chris, do you have an opinion? Yeah, 20,000. Trees and mulch?
Sean, you're doing the tally as we go, please. All right, so number 4, the comprehensive review of zoning code and land use plan, $100,000.
Yeah, I just,
Who would conduct that study? How would that money be spent?
Details to come.
We would bring in an outside consultant for that. That's not something staff should do.
No.
We don't have the bandwidth nor the expertise.
To say details to come later. And then again, if this one is approved, the work would be done to see what it would cost, who could do it, and then the board would vote yes or no to do that. So,
And we obtain this number from asking other communities what they've spent to do similar work. So it's a reasonable number for an estimate.
so I think, Charlie, you said yes. Any other?
I think a comment by staff in terms of our current zoning code would be appropriate at this point.
Yes, so our zoning code is pretty much original to the 1960s. 1964, I think, was the year the village implemented its first big zoning code. And it's been developed and changed over time, but we're in a situation in which there are certain items in that are not addressed in the zoning code. A big one that we've dealt with recently is generators. We have rules on generators for single-family homes, but these rules are applied universally. So that's a situation in which you have either business or multifamily unit like the Wilshire buildings getting a generator, but they're held to the standards of single-family homes. And of course, we can change that individually, but it's not on its own. There's other issues. There's also circular language in the code, references to parts of the code that either no longer exist, parts that have changed, things like that. And it's just best practice to every once in a while do a high-level cleanup of the code. And then along with that, updating a comprehensive plan is also best practice for future land use planning. So
Anytime you touch the zoning code, you really need to have a hard legal look at it and have some specialists really look at it. For instance, we have B3 zoning in the district, and it references B2 and B1 zoning. Well, guess what? We don't have any B1 or B2 zoning districts in the village. We allow haberdasheries as a special use in some places. Well, it's been a while since I've been to a haberdashery and typewriter repair as well. So there are just things.
I'll give you another example, too. So the Acacia townhomes are zoned R3. For some reason, we cannot figure out why there is one block, I can't remember the name, it's the block right over there. They are zoned R3A, which is slightly different. I can't even tell you the difference between right now, but we have no idea why it's zoned differently. So that's another kind of thing that would be looked at. Zoning districts, eliminating unneeded or unused zoning districts, cleaning it up, things like that.
So this is a comprehensive review. We have made changes over time. One of my favorites is I think we took out the when walking a bear, whether the bear had to be muzzled or not.
Yeah.
So
Did it?
it had to be muzzled, yes.
Well, that's good that they at least.
All right, so, and I want to bring up that Chris last month said maybe we don't do this, so, give the board coming in some say. So right now, we're on number 4.
I don't think anybody's in favor of that, so let's just keep going with it. But I do have a question. Andy mentioned the generators. Would it also include things like central air units have to be placed in the rear when so many of them are on the sides of the houses?
Exactly. We want to look at all things like that. Exactly.
Yeah, so it definitely does need to be
And maybe the water
reviewed and cleaned up.
heater.
So if they do a review,
That's not a part of the time.
Andy, this says that it's going to do a review, right? Comprehensive review. Is there going to be an outcome from that?
Oh, yeah. So the desired outcome is a totally new comprehensive plan for land use, as well as not a totally new, but a bunch of changes to our zoning code. In zoning districts, allowed uses, a lot of different changes.
They'll be making the recommendations to us.
Yes.
And Andy, you said that this is something that is best practice, should be done every.
It's hard to
5 years, 10 years, maybe?
Comprehensive plans should probably be every 10 to 15 years.
And it's been.
It's
58 years.
The comprehensive plan, there's 2 different things.
The comprehensive
Yeah.
plan was early 2016.
Okay.
Now, not a lot has changed, but I really think that it's a tool to develop your zoning code, so they are very much related. So we should look at how we want to grow or be as a village.
Can I bring something up? Is it possible to table this until next board meeting, and that we all start looking at it, because it's already 9:00, and just revisit it next board meeting? I mean, we could be sending stuff over to John as
Right.
far as our thoughts, but to go through all this.
Were we going to go through all 12 of these?
Well, no, I don't think we have the money to go through all 12. So we started at the top, and I believe almost everybody's thumbs up on 1, 2, 3. Yeah, if you want to stop, but I think this is a tough discussion, and next month I think it'll be the same issue with time. But whatever the board wants to do.
And we're not voting tonight, right?
Correct.
No, but I mean, at least we can get all our thoughts together and just send it over to John, and then just go through it so much faster next
Right,
week.
I agree.
At the next meeting.
And when we get our thoughts together, what I keep struggling with here is the justification for each one of these. And I think if we had a more comprehensive justifications, it would help us put them in some kind of an order and then allocate whatever dollars we want.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about this since February. So now, and I think, you know, the initial discussion started in January, but we've got something that went around to the board in February. I don't know, Eileen, like, when you say justification and more, I'll use your term, meat on the bones, if you're going to do the triangle facade, that's something that the group has been working on for months. And I know the owner of the property is out of town, which doesn't help. But what's going to change between now and next month? That you guys can do whatever you want. I'm just.
Well, a lot of this is in our heads, but I think we need to, like tonight, we're sitting around sharing all this. And if we are able to put it, you know, like Andy did, put it down on paper for each one of them. I don't know.
Well, but Andy did do that, and we went through it, so.
No, I agree, Tom. We have had time to discuss this. We've had time to think about it. You asked us a couple months ago or a month and a half ago for what our rankings were. There's been a lot of time for discussion. It's not like this is a first look at this.
So I guess my question is then why are we having this prolonged discussion tonight? I mean, I think if we're going to vote on it, we vote on it and it goes up or down. I don't see rehashing each one of these again is a really good use of time.
Well,
we still have other things on the agenda.
I'll add on that. I think the group all decided 1, 2, and 3, right? So I would say that's a starting point. Yahoo, we've done that. You know, if you want to stop here and pick up at 4, 5, 6 next month or whatever you want to do. I mean, these are board goals. They're not my goals and not John or Andy's goals.
If we stop at 1, 2, and 3, there's still, sorry. If we stop at 1, 2, and 3, there's still $218,000 left on the table. So
And
I
maybe
agree.
we save that for the facility study that we're going to hear about next item.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. I think everybody wants to break. So we've got some progress, and we'll come back again. But I'm not sure, Eileen, to your point, what extra verbiage we're going to get.
Well, it sounds as if we're sitting around talking about it yet again. It sounds as if maybe we individually need more information. I don't know. I'm throwing it out there. But, you know, we've spent how long talking about these? And, you know, Chris, you said we've been talking about it for 3 or 4 months. We should know it, but here we are again.
I would suggest that over the next 2 weeks, you just contact staff and we can meet with you individually and give you a little bit more detail of our thoughts. Maybe we've missed something and you can ask some particular questions and then we'll get back to the board as part of the board packet.
I'd also like a copy of Andy's presentation because I think that really.
That's actually going to be part of the third reading of the budget, so thank you.
But again, these are line items. They're not the whole plan, right? So, all right, we'll move along. We're done with goals, so now we're still in the
public hearing.
Public hearing. Is this when we said we would take comments?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody like to make a comment? Amy?
Two, maybe 3 comments. In reading last month's board minutes, the suggestion, I think, Chris, you made it about postponing adopting these goals until the new board is elected. And I'm not going to quote my memory because it's not that good, but I thought that was what the board felt you should wait and do. Just a question.
Apparently the board didn't, and I agreed to just a few minutes ago to say,
Just go with what it is. Okay.
Did we?
I can talk about this.
Yeah.
So we are developing a budget for the new board that's coming on.
I'm not talking the budget, I'm talking these specifically
the goals. But these will be in the budget. However, all of these discreetly will have to be voted on at some point by the future board.
Okay.
So if the new board wants to say, no, we don't want to fund Wolf Road at all, that is their prerogative.
Okay.
but it's a framework for them to get hit the ground running, so to speak.
And I think a clarification that would help is 4 years ago, whose goals did that board work from, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah, somebody
I'm
like.
just recalling what was said at last month's board meeting.
Yeah, somebody like Eileen, who's been on the board 2 years, her first year, she inherited some goals
Okay.
that were done kind of in the same situation.
Okay. My next question is, and maybe I'm not understanding this correctly, but when you're talking about a goal that the planning and zoning, the ordinances need to be redone, why is that an optional goal? Why is that not part of what the administration needs to do regardless?
I'll answer that in that it's been out there for a while. So do we do it this year, next year? Should we have done it 10 years ago? We haven't. So that's a discretionary item.
But then my question is, why isn't the board looking into putting that into a regular budget administrative cost as opposed to an optional
That's
goal?
how we're doing it.
Because when I give the operations budget to the board, I like to keep it consistent, and when we have some special funds, they should have the right to say, yeah, we want to take your recommendation on this, it's important, or no, we don't need to, we have other things to worry about.
Personally, that just seems like a pretty important one that should not be optional. And my last comment is I'd love to see a dog park in Black Hawk Park.
Thank you.
That's it.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Peggy Rose Quietek. I live in Acacia. I'm on the Acacia board. For years, we've been asking for a dog run. I think we really need one because we cannot have fences and our dogs have to be leashed at all times. They can't run. Our dogs need exercise. They need to run. We need a dog run. And please, we talked about it for many years. Please, let's do it. I will volunteer to be on a committee to head it or whatever you need, but I really want to see a dog run. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Mike Owens. I live at 6493 Apache, and I was hoping we were going to talk about number 6, the stormwater drainage. So my house had been affected quite hard, as well as some other folks that are here. This started to occur in late 2021. Somehow the drainage coming through from the north into my backyard, into the McLeans and some of the other neighbors really started to pick up in the spring of 2022. In early February, we had a couple pretty good storms, and it completely wiped out my entire backyard. I had a river running from my backyard into the McLean's backyard, and we had a number of shrubs and bushes, trees that have died. I mean, this is a major change in the stormwater drainage. Not sure what happened. I'm not sure if it was a construction from the north or what it could have been. I know. I will say, Justin in the water department, when I called him, out there in a flash. Every time I've called him, he has called right back. He has been great to communicate with. However, it's been a year now, and we never really got any answers. I followed up with them. Thomas Engineering was out there a number of times, I think on a larger engineering project, but they were also looking at our backyards and looking at the drainage issues. And the comments from Thomas Engineering and Justin and everyone was like, oh yeah, we got a major problem here. But that was a year ago. And, I know we kind of skipped over number 6, the $250,000 grant, and I am here to implore you to really look at this grant for us. $4,000, Andy, is not going to cut it. I've gotten estimates anywhere from $20,000 to $25,000 just for the water mitigation, and for the not landscaping, but just getting my yard back, basically. I know the McLeans have lost trees, and they have rivers in their backyard, so Ray, I know, has had some issues. So, you know, I implore you to really look at this hard. If it's a 50-50 split, that's cool. You know, we'll you know, I'm sure we'll look at doing some other things in the backyard, but the village has got to take some responsibility for whatever happened, and who knows what happened, and if you'll ever get to the bottom of it. But the main thing is to make sure that homeowners like us that are paying $18,000-$20,000 in taxes aren't getting hurt by this, you know, change in the drainage. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Ray Reynolds. I live 2 houses from Mike at 6477 Apache Drive. McLean's, Jessica's my next door neighbor. I've been there, you know, give or take a few months, 15 years. And Mike, I think you moved in
2015.
So I have some perspective from before Mike moved in, and I feel as he does that the village has some responsibility here with the stormwater mitigation, because for the first decade there was not an issue. Okay, then new construction happens to the north of us, or as we say, the back of us, and that new construction needs to be approved, needs to be studied before construction starts by the village to make sure that detrimental things are not happening to the neighbors. And now this new construction comes, and the piece of property in between my house and Jessica's house has eroded to a riverbed, a small creek. And I'm just saying, for 10 years, it wasn't an issue. New construction, bam. Now it's the disaster that Mike's talking about. So,
Thank you, Ray. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Jessica McLean, and I live at 6485 Apache Drive. I'm obviously also hoping that you'll consider the 50-50 grant. I think 2 points. I think one point being, you don't really know if you're going to have to use all of that $250,000. So there's that. You don't know how many people will really put in for the request and what your split would be in that. And when you look at the other projects, they're all really worthy of your consideration. But I also think as residents, we also would like to be happy in our community and feel like we're valued as much as the hardscape and you know, the sound barriers and everything else in a year and a half. And I've been so pleased with how quickly Andy and everyone from the village has come out to look at the problem and try to help with the problem. But what I really need is, and could use, is some real assistance, I would love any kind of financial assistance I could get at this point to help really mitigate the problem that has happened. I unfortunately happen to also have one of those big drainage ditches in the front of my property that has also turned into almost just a pond in my front yard this year. So I'm dealing with that in my front yard and all this water in the backyard. And I just feel like infrastructure, it feels a little bit like the infrastructure is something isn't right. And I didn't buy into a neighborhood assuming that I would be dealing with that. I thought I would be dealing with, you know, painting my house and picking window treatments and all those other fun things. This isn't fun. It isn't the way I hope to spend a lot of our discretionary funds. I'm certainly willing to kick in as a homeowner. I expect and understand to do that. But I would also just really implore you to look at that really seriously as a consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. Hang on. Let's see, Ray, let me see if anybody else is coming. I don't see anybody else. Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's just something I just want to say, because I've been going through this a while and been talking to several of you, and I want to say John and Andy and Justin, they've been fantastic. So I just wanted to
Thank you.
thank you guys for
Thank you, Andy and Justin and Don and staff for doing that. All right, any other comments? This is the comments in the public hearing.
I've got to
for-
ask a question. With all of these comments on Apache Drive and 45 acres, was this included in the flood study for 45 acres? Do we know that?
Ray, we can't hear you when, we can hear you, but anybody listening later can't hear you.
study from Thomas, from what I understand, and it is not my business, I am not an engineer, was the infrastructure basically on the streets, the sewer flowage and the restriction points and the downstream stuff. It did not cover the water, stormwater from the back of the property rushing to the front. So the Thomas report really didn't address it at all.
Thank you, Ray. John?
I believe that's correct, but I will relook at the study. It's
Yeah, the Thomas study, I mean, it was to get an overview idea of the whole system, but it was the purpose was never to look at the individual properties.
Well, I'll take exception to that. One of the questions that was asked was, were individual residents polled or looked at in regards to the study? I don't know the whole background to that, but that was part of the conversation that took place during the hearings a couple months ago when they were talking about the study.
Well, I think,
And if you've got these kind of results that have flooding front yard, flooding backyard in the study area, it strikes me as something's deficient here. I don't know what it is yet, but we haven't got a program to fix these kind of problems.
well, I think, Justin, and please correct me, and Don, there was individual areas checked in Old Town. 45 acres as a whole was looked at. My question would be, did we know about this when the study was launched?
Well, as I recall, when they came out, they said they didn't interview the residents because they weren't home. I mean, they didn't attempt to.
But Public Works has known about certain issues throughout the village for a long time. That's why we added them over and above the 45-acre study. We took 5 or 6 specific areas in Old Town that were the 5 or 6 worst, in our opinion, from years of getting calls from neighbors, and the study was based on those. So I don't think that we've had a portal open or a list of this particular issue that the study would have encompassed at that point. Now, if we were starting a study today, I would say yes, most likely they would probably be looked at. So it's not that it was obfuscated, I don't know that it was, the timing of it was.
Well, can the study be reopened to incorporate what we're seeing today?
Well, we could probably do I don't want to speak for John, but a special task order and have them.
So I just want to chime in. The study it was designed not to be in all the backyards, like more the front stormwater system. And we have been aware of, there's been portal complaints from Ray going, and these three homes. We have been aware of it, and there was a couple issues further back upstream that had since been mitigated. It was a bunch more water, and it's been, hopefully that was solved, but I feel for them. There's still, there's still some that we've seen, but the Thomas's study was, that was a part of their scope.
But I distinctly remember them saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but saying that they didn't really interview residents because they weren't home.
Yeah, and they also said that the system was doing what it was supposed to be doing as far as the drainage. And if that's the case, then was the system supposed to get their lawns, put them in the lakes in the backyard? And I don't think so. So something's missing here.
Mm-hmm. When they looked at the system, it was what's in the public right-of-way and the size of the storm sewer mains in the right-of-way, not necessarily water conveying from the backyards to the storm sewer system.
Well, I've got a sense here that it's not just their backyard that's wet. There's water going into it from other sources. Is that correct? Yeah. So you got some serious drainage, and if you've been dry for 10 years and then all of a sudden you're getting lakes in the backyard, then something's not right. And perhaps when we get to that number 5 or 6 or whatever it is, that we expand the study to find out what it is that's causing that, so that we can take appropriate action as opposed to individual action.
Yeah.
Are you okay if we go back to public comments?
Thank you, sir.
Any other public comments? Okay. How do we wrap up?
We need a motion to close
I'll
the
make a
public
motion
hearing.
to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. And
Can I say something real fast?
yes.
So this is the first time, or almost the first time in my entire career, this is my 35th budget, where I've actually had people talk and ask something during the public hearing process. So you will be remembered. Thank you.
Well, unfortunately for them.
Oh, yeah, but
Okay, thank you, Chris and Rita. This is a roll call vote,
Yes, sir.
please.
All right, Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayer.
Aye.
Trustee O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Donnersberg.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that has been approved. Moving on to the next item, the facility study, which is a discussion only. Is this John or Andy? John?
I'll take it. So part of the board goals this year was to look at village facilities. So we started off looking hard at the Heritage Center. Trustee Eck early on said maybe we ought to look bigger. So we encompassed Village Hall and Public Works. Strand Associates did the study for us, and we just so happen to have a representative of Strand Associates here for any questions you might have. This is a Class 4 study, which is better than me doing something on the back of a napkin, but not to the level of bidding out for cost estimates. So we have some wide variety of stuff to look at. The Heritage Center is going to be in the neighborhood of $320,000 to bring it up to ADA code, build current building codes to make it right. Is that something that we want to do? Village Hall, I think, is in the neighborhood of $600,000.
900.
900,000.
100.
Public Works, several $100,000 to do that. This is a long-term discussion. It will not be finished tonight, nor really in the next 2 years, but we're getting the ball rolling on it. So might have questions of Tony, what your methodology is.
And Public Works was 450, just
Right.
to round it out, so we're just under $2 million. Tony, you want to add?
Sure. So like John indicated, this is a very high-level assessment of the facilities. There's 3 phases to this. The first phase is the assessment itself, which we had 3 engineers on site doing an evaluation of all 3 of the Village Hall and the police station, this entire building, Heritage Center, and also Public Works. During their investigation, they found items which are listed in the draft report. They are items that are code-based, that either a safety code, a building code, or a energy code deficient based on today's standards. So there are some things in this that are listed as out of code or out of compliance that may or may not be a desperate thing that has to be fixed. It's not like you have a leaking roof that's an immediate need, but there are some things that, and we'll take for instance the Heritage Center. If you worry about an accessible ramp to get into the Heritage Center, now you have to do accessible bathroom and other accessible accommodations within the facility. But at Public Works, I'll use the example of the HVAC unit and the air handling unit that's in the garage, which have automatic controls. When the building was built, those items are to code. To today's standards, they are not to code. So you're not necessarily having a problem with those things, but it is something that if you're looking at the life cycle of your building and what it would take to bring it up to code, we're identifying those things in this draft report. Then our next phase is the space needs assessment. Police department, in the presentation with the budget, they talked about the desperate need for storage space. So that is what we are looking at next. We will be having a meeting with staff to do that component of the study. And then the final part of the study would be actual conceptual floor plans, which for Village Hall, if there was room to make improvements, whether it's a building addition or reconfiguring the space that's already here within the outer four walls, that's conceptual plans that we will be doing that all get packaged into one study, one report that will then become a final report. But the cost items in here, because the timing is unknown of when these things might happen, also because we haven't done any engineering design to say what size furnace you actually need or what size air handling or how big the locker room they need for ammunition or evidence storage here on site, that hasn't been done yet. So these dollar values that are listed in the report are estimates at best, and they also include contingencies to account for maybe some of these things don't happen for 10 years. So once the report becomes final, it becomes the board's decision as to what the priorities are for each item, which is why Strand did not prioritize. They just listed these items. They might look in the priority, but they're just a brain dump of the things we found when we were doing the assessment of all the buildings. We put them into their individual table for each building to give the board and anyone reading the report an idea of what we feel as professionals is needed to bring the buildings up to code.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In our village, the buildings are different aged, and so there's life expectancy of a building, and they're built differently and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a further down factor in trying to look at what our options are.
Well, yes, except that if the structure is still standing, we will be looking at the foundation and see what that condition's in. So like at the Heritage Center, for instance, it's probably the oldest building in the town of the three. Foundation's needs repair. So we're looking at stuff like that, and that goes into this assessment. So it's not that, okay, Heritage Center is the oldest, so that's going to cost the most. The three engineers that were on site went room by room, equipment by equipment, looking at electrical panels, looking at everything, and making their assessment as to what should be done to bring it up to current code and applied a dollar value to it based on our experience with these type of improvements.
Tony, you also talked about the next steps or the next couple steps. Is there an estimate? Is that a month or 3 months or?
So I believe, I know that we have a meeting scheduled, I believe it's next week for, I'm going to say the next step, which is the space needs discussion. Once we have that discussion with staff, we will complete that part of the report. It will get added to this draft report because the draft report you have in front of you is just the facility assessments. Then we will do the space need assessment. It gets included. And then once that happens, then we will have another meeting with staff to discuss, okay, we have said police department wants evidence room. They want larger firearm and ammunition lockers. Village Hall might want a private conference room for closed session type items. All that gets put into the conceptual floor plans, and then that gets drafted up by our architecture group. So as I'm standing here, I would suspect within 3 months. I know we have a deadline on our deliverables, but I don't have that in front of me. But we do have a deadline based on our task order that you guys did approve for this facility.
But you're thinking roughly 3 months without having that fact. It's not going to be a week or two.
Correct, because we're having the space needs discussion next week. Then once that discussion occurs, it will probably take a week to 2 weeks to get that put into the report. Then we share it again with staff, and then after that, it goes to the next step. We have another meeting to talk about conceptual floor plans.
Thank you. Other questions or comments for Tony? Okay, more to come, right?
Right, yep.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Okay, I believe we are at reports. Trustees, Eileen, I will start with you and we'll go around the table. Anything to report?
Well, the spring fling is going to happen. We have 12 vendors, and I feel very confident we're going to get 15 or more. But I think our vision of it has evolved so that it is not just a fair for the vendors, but it's an event for the whole family. We're going to have a train for little kids. We're going to have a face painter there. We'll have music for the adults, maybe a little libation, balloons. So we're trying to make it a real fun event.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
Yes.
I think Dave is pulling up a visual for Sean.
Dave, can you bring up the road map? Thank you.
So I know it's hard to see there, but this is a ongoing deep dive plan that we work with Thomas Engineering in the Public Works Department on our roads in the village. In the bottom left-hand corner, I know it's hard to see, it goes from a deep dark red all the way down to a green. Red is also listed at the top as a number 1, green is a number 10. So what Thomas does every year is they go through our roads and they determine which ones they rank them in repair needed. So the ones in green, obviously been done the last couple of years. So when we met in Public Works and looked at the red with the budget that we had, we were trying to figure out which ones to work on. So just to give a little background, I think what we decided on and what you'll hear from us probably at the next meeting is the Cascade Drive was a deep red. We looked at doing that and then decided to maybe back off on it because that is also coming due for some water main work. And it didn't make any sense in our minds to tear up a road to a year or two later have to tear up the road again or next to it for the water mains. So the 3 areas that were decided were 65th Place off of Willow Springs Road and Arrowhead Trail at the very bottom, and right above that 70th Place, which will also include a parking lot for Village Works. The good news is, I think we came in substantially under budget on that, if I remember correctly, a couple $100,000.
Well, it's in theory. It's based on the Thomas estimates from a few years ago.
Sure.
With inflation, we won't know for sure, but we're optimistic.
Yeah, that it's going to come under budget. So that's just a little background as to where we are in the village. So stay tuned for Cascade Drive. I think you're pretty close on the docket. And that's all I had to report.
Sean, does that list change from year to year?
Yeah.
Can it?
Definitely. There was also areas for continuity that we discussed because Apache Drive and Big Bear Drive were done last year. Do we finish off the rest of 45 acres? Because it's getting close to the deep red areas. So it's definitely open for discussion. But yes, things may change. Again, if we have a water main issue significant in an area and a road is close to being needed done, again, take care of it all at once. So. Yes, it's an ongoing.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you explain the relativity of a deep red or a green? Is a deep red mean that the road is absolutely undrivable, or?
No, and I've said it before in Public Works, and I think the shape of our roads in our village are significantly better than surrounding communities. I think we do a fantastic job here. But no, it doesn't mean that the road is necessarily going to fail every time. It's just the ranking of which one is in the need the most. People that live on Cascade Drive will probably agree. I know there's a couple in Ashbrook that Charlie has brought up at meetings from time to time. Those are starting to get a little bit darker red, so I would expect those to be just a couple years down the road.
So they're just the worst in the village, but they're not necessarily
unpassable.
really
or-
awful.
Correct.
Chris?
Where's Ashburn?
The only thing I have is the next Finance Committee meeting, my last Finance Committee meeting, I believe, will be Monday, March 20th at 6 p.m. And
Here in the Village Hall, correct?
here in the Village Hall, that is correct.
Is that it?
Yep.
Brenda?
Yes, petting zoo and pony rides, and along with the Easter Bunny, will be at April 8th on Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Is that it?
That is it.
And the Easter egg hunt is, I think, our most attended event pretty much year in and year out, right?
Right, and it's about 30 seconds.
A lot of work for 30 seconds, right? Well, taking pictures with the Easter Bunny takes a little longer.
Exactly.
Getting the eggs is 30 seconds.
Exactly.
Yeah. Rita?
No report.
Thank you. Charlie?
2 items. One is a request to staff, and that is the board materials are quite long. This one was over 200 pages. Some have been over 300 pages. If there would be a way to separate the attachments into segments that make it easier to get to would be very much appreciated.
You can.
Such as financial information, consent items, major sections, such as materials supporting various ordinances and things like that. Having it sequential, for me anyhow, puts it in a less attractive means of being able to access that information. So that's a request I have. And then second is working with Jim Gazzis. We're working on treasury management to be able to work with staff in regards to increasing the investment income that might be available to us. Thank you.
Can I do a quick poll of the board? Others share the same concern about the 300 pages, 200 pages?
Well, it's a lot to read. If you can get it to us sooner, I realize that you're probably scrambling to get the board packets together, but the sooner you get us, the better.
Some villages meet twice a month, which would cut the packet in half, but double the meetings, right?
In most communities, if they have a Monday board meeting, the packet goes out that Friday.
So, Charlie, excuse me, I'm not quite sure what you mean, because I can just press on the agenda item and it'll bring me to this attachment. Is that what you're saying?
It says go to next to a line.
Yeah, but having it separate. I understand the go.
Oh, I see
I
what you're
understand
saying.
the go to, but getting to the various segments of it, for me anyhow, has been less attractive using that method as opposed to having it separately segregated so that you could, if you wanted to look at the facilities study versus a particular ordinance, it allows you to focus on that.
All right, thank you. Village clerk? No comment. Village treasurer? No report. Village attorney?
No report.
Village administrator?
Okay, pump house update, no action for the board. We are waiting on engineering review of change orders. We expect that sometime in the near future, but any further action has to be done by the board in open session, so just keeping you apprised of that.
Before you get off of that,
Yes.
do we have an active agreement with any vendor in regards to the work that we're doing?
For the pump house?
For the pump house?
Yeah, we did, we signed.
We have a
the-
contract
yeah.
with the vendor, yes. The board approved the agreement, the village signed it, and they have submitted a change order request that is under review right now. And I've given permission for them to start that review. We've negotiated a reduced price to some degree, but we're at a standstill right now because we need engineering review of the equipment, and then that will go to the board for formal review. But we have a commitment with a vendor, and we are proceeding with the project as is.
So I just want to ask a question. Do we have a firm commitment? Because, after all, they changed it from going from 1 year to 2 years.
That hasn't been changed yet. If I could just jump in, we do have an agreement that the board approved with the contractor. The contractor has requested a change order. So as it stands right now, the timing for substantial completion, the equipment, everything is as approved by the board. Any changes to that contract will have to be set forth in that change order, and then will be subject to board vote. So that's the current status of things. So, so the year that I just wanted to make clear, that hasn't been approved.
If we don't approve it, can the contractor back out of the deal?
No, they have a contract. If they try to back out of the deal, then they're going to be subject to a breach of contract. And there's also liquidated damages currently in the contract that we have if substantial completion is not met. But I'd ask you to just reserve judgment on any of this until we get the engineering review of the change order, and then you all are going to have to make a determination as to whether or not approving that change order is in the best interest of the village.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, keep going.
Oh, yes. So street signs, we're waiting for the samples to show up, and stormwater complaints. We've only received one other one through the portal. I will add the complaints we received tonight to the stormwater list.
I think we've already had at least 2 of them in the list.
I'll double check. Thank you.
Yeah, they're in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andy?
Yes, quick ones. So first, SBC events coming up soon. There's flyers over there with all the relevant dates. I'll let you pick up the flyers. It's also available on our website. The big one is April 15th is the electronics, paint recycling, and shred event. And then the other quick thing is the winter photo contest technically ends tomorrow. You can start submitting spring photos starting Monday. Voting on the winter photos will take, the survey will be included as part of the April e-newsletter, and will also be on our website for voting. That's all I have.
Thank you. Chief, Police Department, camera project?
Anything more?
Was it?
Anything more?
Yeah, anything.
Another camera. This is the time of cameras.
Dave, can you put the, there you go. Well, it's a little hard to read, but the this is for the LPR cameras that we're looking to put into the village. The current ones that are installed are the 4 cameras. And Tom, yes. Oh, I thought you were going to help point out. So the Wolf Road and Plainfield Road and the Arrowhead Trail down by Indianwood subdivision are the current cameras that are up and running. We're still waiting for the IDOT permits for Joliet Road, which supposedly are in the works finally. The yellow coating here, all the red dots at the outskirts of the village perimeter basically, or our entrances and egresses to and from the village. Those are the next phase that I'd like to get the cameras installed in order to capture the no goods that are coming into the village to do no good. These are the main entrances to our town. Plainfield Road at 294, a couple more up at Wolf and Plainfield Road, coming off the tollway on the south end of town, coming in from Burr Ridge would be the next cameras that I'd like to see put in. There's also, in working agreement or talking with Burr Ridge, they're willing to also put in cameras that would be beneficial to us in certain areas, such as along 72nd Street, where they could put another camera that would capture the vehicles that would be coming eastbound on 72nd towards Indian Head Park. So instead of us having to put a camera up there, they would cut our cost on purchasing that camera, and we can put it somewhere else in the meantime. Same thing with the current camera that's down by Indian Woods. We can move that farther south into Burr Ridge because there's no other entrance to Burr Ridge or Indian Head Park if we come farther south. So it would benefit Burr Ridge and it would benefit the village of Indian Head Park with those additional cameras. The yellow squares are indications of the entrances to all of the subdivisions in town. That would be the one of the last phases that we would look to do, unless we had some mutual agreement with the HOAs, where the HOAs of those subdivisions could buy their own cameras and then grant us access to those cameras. So it would be twofold. It would be helping the HOAs, it would be helping those subdivisions provide cameras, and it would be, giving it to us also. And the last ones are the green ones for the shopping centers. If we want to approach the shopping centers, and we can do a shared expense with them, and even with the HOAs, if the board wanted to do a shared expense with the cameras, just to get, like we're doing with the Ring cameras, is one of the board's goals of, buying the cameras. Any clarifications needed, or did I confuse everybody enough?
No, so we're going with Flock. Motorola has been unresponsive to our needs.
Motorola's been very slow in responding to activity. The cameras that they were supposed to deliver in May finally came in mid-January, and we're in the process of Public Works is getting the material to install them for us.
But really, we want to focus on Flock cameras and proceed.
But the way that the software is, the Flock's software is so much user-friendly. The Vigilant Motorola cameras, their software is terrible as far as I'm concerned.
What other communities around us have Flock?
A lot of the towns have a mix. Hinsdale has a mix of Flock and Vigilant. Western Springs, I just talked to the deputy chief there this morning. They're looking to possibly go with Flock. They don't have any cameras installed at this time. Burr Ridge has Flock cameras, and they have some Vigilant cameras also.
Okay. Chief, how many cameras total?
Oh, I didn't count them up. I just looked at all the entrances to town.
It looks like, if I guess, 25 or 30?
8, 9. Well, the
Not
initial
counting the
for all
yellow.
the entrances would be 9, I believe.
No, yeah, I was trying to count the yellow.
Well, that would be a later phase.
Well, and that was going to be my question. So we're going to do this in steps. We're going to do the 9 first, and then
17 cameras for HOAs or the neighborhoods that could
plus the
potentially
9,
have.
so 26. So 9 to start, rest to come. Rough time frame, and I guess it obviously is going to depend on
couple years
how willing they are to have skin in the game too for this.
And
to your
also,
point.
Flock just contacted me Tuesday, Wednesday. Dan Murdoch, who's our liaison for Flock, he said that Police One and Flock have not merged, but they've are working together to do grant searches for us. And apparently there's a lot of money out there right now where the LPR cameras are considered a safety issue, and I guess there's some federal money out there for it. So we're in the process of checking on that also.
Thank you.
So if I understand, the plan is to bring to the board the cost to get the red squares, the entrances to the village?
That would be the way I want to do it, and hopefully you agree with me on that one. Because, the HOAs, the local subdivisions, they have to go through those exterior cameras at the entrances to town before they get into the HOA areas, the neighborhood subdivisions. But again, it's just giving an extra layer of where are they going. Now we'd be getting a notice, the cell phones that, hey, there's a car at Plainfield and 294 eastbound coming into town, and they just might go right through town and, pass us up and go in the countryside. But if they, we now get a notice at Plainfield and Indian Wood that, they're on Keokuk, then we know that they're in our local subdivision.
Any questions, comments for Mike?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Public Works?
No report.
Good answer.
Thank you, sir.
Do you want to report on the cookies? Are they good?
I just want to say a shout out to Justin and his crew. They were on my block like crazy when we had that bad storm and worked very hard to keep the water from overflowing the culvert and flooding everything. So they just did a great job.
And I'll add on to that, we did hear tonight, Justin and Don and team got kudos and thank you. So thank you, Justin and Don. And the cookies look good.
I was up all day.
Okay, public comments?
Some resident brought them in. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn at 9:55 PM.
Time out. Hey, can you hang on 1 second? So we're making a motion to go into closed session for two purposes, to adjourn the regular meeting and go into closed session for two purposes, one being under personnel under 2C1 and the second being for collective bargaining under 2C2. Was that your motion?
That's exactly what I said.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Elaine. Is there a second?
No, thanks.
Second.
Thank you, Charlie. A roll call vote, please.
Okay, trustee Donnersberger.
Sorry, Pat.
Busy with the cookies. Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayer.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee O'Loughlin.
Yes.
She's still here?
Oh, aye.
Yeah. And trustee Donnersberger.
Aye.
Okay, that's been approved. We will take a minute or two break and come back.